أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ومن اهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين ثم ما بعد. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bearing witness that there is no one to be worshipped except Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one has the right to be worshipped but Him, Jalla wa Ala, the Most High, the Mighty. And that His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sent bil huda wa din al-haq, with guidance in the religion of truth. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Mighty, the Sublime, has no likeness to His creation, no similarity. He's in a category by Himself, unique, alone in His names, attributes, descriptions, His existence. We begin, inshallah wa ta'ala, by the permission of Allah, and we ask Allah يعلمنا من علمه, to depart, give us some of His knowledge, وأن ينفعنا بما علمتنا, and bless what we learn to be beneficial for us, وأن يجعلنا عاملين عليها, and to bless us to be those who practice and use that knowledge that befalls upon us. Ameen. وَيَجْعَلَهُ حُجَّةً لَنَا لَا عَلَيْنَا, and make it a evidence and a proof for us, not against us. Ameen. This is the third sitting with the book of Imam Al-Hafiz Al-Abid Al-Zahid Al-Muhaddith Al-Muttaqi Abi Faraj, وهو Ibn Jawzi rahimahullah ta'ala, in his famous book Talbis Iblis, the tricks, the deception, the plots of the devil. What I intend to do, if Allah makes it easy, I pray that He does. I want to go back and read, because we took from 1 to 7 last night. The Shaikh, he mentioned 13 different plots, tricks of the devil. And we said that it's not restricted. It's not restricted to 13, but he mentioned 13 was the most important, that he thought the most prevalent, the most general, that he's seen in his time, that he understood would continue until the day of judgment. Somebody else might bring 20. Someone else might bring 40. But this is the Sheikh's work and his effort that he wanted to bring. So we covered from 1 to 7 yesterday. And also, we didn't mention every detail from the book. We don't have time. We're just bringing what's relevant to make the point clear, and then we'll expound on what we need to, inshallah ta'ala. So we're going to go back to the first point, to the 7th, and then we'll continue from 7 to 13, and then we'll take a break, and then I'm going to come back and deal particularly with the issue of some of the hadith. I'm going to quote some of the hadith, and it's going to also have statements of the companions and the tabi'een, and those itba' tabi'een that talk about the obligation of holding on to the sunnah, the obligation of not opposing the sunnah, the obligation of sticking to the Prophet and his companions. And then those texts that have to do with terminology that people have hijacked or misrepresented. Because this is important. And this is part of why we have the confusion 20, 30 years later, because people are using terminology and it seems like, well, it fits. But if the wool is pulled from over your eyes, then you understand it doesn't fit. But rather it's pouring gasoline on the fire. So, inshallah, I hope Allah He makes it easy, and I ask Allah sincerity and to give me truthfulness in my speech, and bless me to be those who practice what they preach. I mean, tell you, the first thing the Shaikh he mentioned, and the Shaikh is going to mention the positive thing, but the opposite thing will be what Shaitan tries to get you to do. So like the first point is Luzum al-Wujub. The first point the Shaykh is going to deal with, the chapter of al-Wujub, the obligation. Wujub means obligation. We hear this all the time, wajib. So Wujub is the plural of wajib. Wujub. So this means the many obligations. And then the Shaykh he says, Luzum. Luzum means something that's necessary, like you've been mandated. Like when you work in places that are tied to the state, be it corrections or some of those hospitals that are dealing with the mental illness, or some places where you have to relieve the person. If that person don't show up, you're mandated to stay. You can't leave until somebody relieves. You can't say, well, I did my 8 or my 10, I'm going home. Nope. That's a Luzum. So Luzum here, the Shaykh said, Wujub, the many obligations, Wujub. Like the Prophet when Abu Hurairah encountered the man who came in the form, when he encountered the Shaitan who came in the form of a man, he was taken from the Zakat al-Fitr. And that man, family, he was going to be taken to the Prophet, and he told Abu Hurairah, let me go. If you do, I'll tell you something that when you go to sleep at night, you will not cease to find except Allah will protect you from every evil, and the Shaitan will come near you. So Abu Hurairah let him go, and he told Abu Hurairah recite Ayatul Kursi. When the Prophet was approached by Abu Hurairah, and he told him that he came back, just like he informed me he would, O Rasulullah, he told me to recite Ayatul Kursi. The Prophet said, Sadaqah. Sadaqah here doesn't mean charity. Sadaqah also means someone past tense, he spoke the truth. Sadaqah. So if you say Sadaqah Ahmadu, that means Ahmed spoke the truth. But if you say Nafaqa Ahmadu Sadaqatan, then that means, because Nafaqa means to spend. So now the context of Sadaqah changes. It means Ahmed gave or spent in Sadaqah. So Sadaqah here, the Prophet says Sadaqah. Who did the Sadaqah? The Shaitan who came in the form of a man. He spoke the truth yesterday, last night, when he told you to read Ayatul Kursi before you go to bed, and you will have nothing but protection from Allah, and no evil, no shayateen, no jinns, no devils will come near you. The Prophet says Sadaqah. He spoke the truth. Then he said, Wahuwa, but he is Kadoob. Kadoob. Kadoob is like Wujub. This is a verb scale that you fit words on and it changes the meaning. So the word normally is Kadaba. He lied. So Huwa Kadab, he's the one who's doing the lying. The Prophet said, Wahuwa Kadooba. Here the Shaykh said al-wujuba. You hear the similarity in the way the word sounds? Kadoob, the Prophet said, Wahuwa Kadoob. Kadoob. So you take kadaba, kaf, thou, ba, and then you put a wow in front of the thou, and it becomes kadooba. And of course you have to put a dhamma on the calf that was a fatha. Kataba becomes, the calf stays fatha, the dhamma as over the thou, kadoob, because the wow was elongating the oo sound, kadooba. So this kadoob, the Prophet is saying, is similar to the word structure of al-wujub. So kadoob, it takes its meaning from the word fa'ul. Fa'ala means to do. And I know this is a dars about aqidah and manhaj, but
the ulama, they teach the Arabic sometimes in the rules because it helps us to understand what's happening. So fa'ala, all of the words come from the base fa'ala, to do. So if you take kadaba, that means to lie. Fa'ala is the base. You substitute the fa, the ain, the lam, and you put the kaf, the dal, the ba. Fa'ala, he did. Kadaba, he lied. If you change it, wajaba, he obligated. Tell you, now you go to kadub, the word change. Kadub comes from the word fa'ul. And fa'ul means someone who's doing the action. No, the wow means he's doing a lot of action. Yeah, he's doing a lot of action. Like majority, that person is moving, doing stuff. So the word kadub now means he's most of the time he's lying, like we say, habitual lying. So when the Shaikh said al-wujub, this means you have a lot of obligations, lazum al-jama'ah, to hold on to the jama'ah. Al-wujub al-lazum, the many obligations. This ayat, that ayat, this hadith. Not just one avenue or one area, you got a lot of areas that you have been obligated, lazum, to hold on to. Lazum, yani, the necessity, to cling to al-jama'ah. So that's the first thing the Shaykh brought, where the shaitan will trick you. He will come and make war with you as it relates to this issue. And that's simply the main reason we have all of these sects. People say, well, why do we have all these groups? Because the shaitan came to make that problem with regards to holding on to the jama'ah. Once he splits you and cuts you and throws that part over here and that part over here, you're not going to be able to hold on because you got to gather all your parts again. So the first chapter, the Shaykh, he brings Ibn Jawzi in the book where the shaitan tricks and deceives and plots in the area of al-wujub, lazum, al-jama'ah, the many obligations of lazum, al-jama'ah. And we said jama'ah has many meanings. Jama'ah, the main meaning, they said it means to hold on to the kitab and the sunnah. Jama'ah. And they get that, we said, from the ayah where Allah said, وَعَتَّصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Here's the highlight. Jami'an. Jeen, ayn. Jeen, meen, ayn. That has the medda, the line on the side of it. And then there's two factors. So it's ja, mi, kasra, and then it's ayn, because it's two fatha. Jami'an. That word jami'an is a description. And every description has what's called a masdar. Masdar is a word that's not a noun, it's not an ism, it's not a fi'l, it's not an action, it's 50-50. Half a ism, half a noun, and half a fi'l, half a verb. We don't have that in English. But we do have it in English, but we don't have it as a concept in the language. Like, for example, if I point to that door and ask you, what's that, you're going to say door. But if we had above it E-X-I-T, you're going to say exit. We went over this yesterday. In Arabic, exit is kharuj. When you go to make hajj, you go to the airports in Arabic, you see kha, ra, waw, jeen, kharuj. But you also see a symbol, a shadow painted of somebody doing like this, or with his leg like this in hand, making the motion he's going out. So that kharuj is a thing, a doorway that you go out, and it's something you do. I'm kharuj al-an. Half a verb, half a noun. We call it in Arabic masdar. We call it in English a verbal noun. Why am I mentioning that? Because jami'an, the masdar, the verbal noun of jami'an is jama'ah. Jama'ah. It's a masdar. It's a thing and something you have to do. So when the Shaykh mentioned Lazum al-Jama'ah and Wujub Lazum al-Jama'ah, there are many obligations of clinging. Lazum here also means necessity, but it means to cling. A Jama'ah, this means the 5 daily prayer, that's a thing. But it also means the group of the Muslims who want the haqq as an action and a thing. So this Jama'ah has many meanings. The main meaning, it means the book of the Sunnah. As the Prophet clearly said in the hadith, Ma ana alayhi yawm wa ashabi, when he said, Huwa Jama'ah, here Jama'ah, this is Jama'ah. He said, what I'm on today while I'm alive and my companions, meaning once I die. What were they upon? Kitab and Sunnah. So this is the main meaning of Jama'ah. But it also means a group of people on the hop who said, I like this Jama'ah, this community. You're going to pray. Where are you going? I'm going to catch the Jama'ah. So it's an action and a thing. So that's the first thing the Shaykh, he brought the obligation to hold on to that. That is the Jama'ah. And so Shaitan is going to come and trick you in the affairs of that, because this is his plot to trick you and to deceive you. So he comes in the way to break up and to make problems. While it looks like you're on the hop and you're in line with the Jama'ah, really he has made you go against the hop and go against the Jama'ah. Also, one of the meanings of Jama'ah we said is fuqaha, the scholars of Islam. Fuqaha. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about that being the meaning, then those who don't stick to the fuqaha. But again, for us, this stuff has to be in context. It doesn't mean to worship the fuqaha. It means to stick to them, meaning when you need it. Mm-hmm. If you need something and you don't understand something, that's when you go to your fuqaha. When you want to learn, that's when you go to your fuqaha. Just like when you want to go and learn something in the worldly life. You don't just go get from the bookstore the science books, the biology books, the tech books, the computer books, and you sit down, you start reading, you figure it out, and then you say, okay, I know it, I'm going to go take a test and get my certification degree. Yeah, you may have some people that exception to the rule that can do that. But the general norm, you got to go to the school, register, and sit down with a teacher.
That's right.
So that in the deen sense, Allah said, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. Ask the people of the dhikr if you don't know. Ask the people who have the Quran and the Sunnah when you don't know. Once you know, you don't have to refer to them. Because Allah said, this is the condition. In Arabic means do something with this condition. So Allah said, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. And we're on the issue of the wujub, the zoom of Jama'ah. The obligation, the many obligations holding on to the Jama'ah. Why we mention this? Because one of the meanings of Jama'ah is your ulama. But we hold on to them, not in the way we hold on to the Quran and the Sunnah. It's different. And we'll bring that too. So here the point is that we've been commanded to go to them when we need to know. They are the experts. When we don't know, for clarity. But once you know, that's it. And so Allah said, Fas'alu, this is a command form. Fas'alu, that's a command form. Fas'alu, ahl dhikri. Ask the people who have the knowledge, and we're talking about firstly their ulama. It goes from ulama, and then the different categories, because you have someone who's an alama, that's the highest you can go, like the billboard. Then you have alim kibir, he's a major person of knowledge. Then you have alim sagir, he's a minor scholar of knowledge. Then you have faqih, he specializes in jurisprudence and teach you halal, haram, this and that. Then you have shaykh, he just has the baseline knowledge, but he's not like those other ones that we mentioned. And then you have talib, who's not a shaykh. Because everybody is a talib ilm. meaning the learning until they die. But then that is on different levels. Some people are just talib al-ilm. She doesn't have the credentials to go or be called Shaikh. But he or she has the credentials to be called talib al-ilm, one who's seeking the knowledge. But then some talib al-ilm have reached the level of Shaikh. She has the general knowledge. And this is another trick of the shaitan. In our time, everybody that's other than what people understand to be a scholar or a sheikh, he's just a talib al-ilm. So when it comes to us in America, you're 40, 50 years studying, you have your shuyukh, you memorize, or you have your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD, but you just stay right here, you're a talib al-ilm. You'll never become a sheikh. Are you serious? Which will prevent you from calling the one who really in your land, in your community, from your people, sheikh, because no, he's not a sheikh, he's just a talib. But mata yani yakun sheikhan hina either. Then when did he ever become a sheikh? Yeah, when? Never. And that's another trick that is not in the book, but that's designed to keep you from respecting what Allah said, Fas'alu ahla dhikr. You can't ask him, you got to call overseas, and then what they tell you, that's what you take. While every land and circumstance has its own fatwa. You can't import a fatwa from overseas to another land, unless the conditions, people, and circumstances are the same. And they're not. So anyway, getting back to the point of when I'm making Jama'ah, one of the meanings is fuqaha, scholars, ulama. And we stick to them, meaning we go to them when we don't know. They're like the resource, they're like the reference point for us before the iPads, computers, and internet. You go ask them, you travel to them, and Allah said, In kuntum la ta'lamun. This is the condition for asking them. In other words, if you know, then you don't ask them. You don't ask them. So this is the many shades of the word jama'ah. And one of them, the main one again, is the Prophet and his Sahaba, or the Quran and Sunnah and the way of the Sahaba. And then we said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he also mentioned that we will be divided into 73 sects. So at this point, it goes with this first point, and then the second point I'm going to mention quickly. This 73 sects, this the Prophet mentioned, and there's two ways to understand this, because there's a trick with this one too from the Shaikh. The Prophet, he said, the Jews, in one narration, there were 72 sects. In another word, he said the Christians were 71, and the Jews were 72, and my nation is going to divide to 73. He said all of them will be, so this is the highlight, kulluhum fin nari. Kulluhum fin nari. All of them will be in the fire. So that means all the Muslims are going to be in the hellfire. If you just stop there, kulluhum fin nari, because he said, فَسَبْتَرَكُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى ثَلَاثَ وَسَبَعِينَ فِرْقًا. My ummah is going to divide to 73 sects. So you take one ummah and you start chopping, so you get to 73. He said, كُلُّهُمْ فِي النَّارِ. All those that you chop, they're going to be in the fire. The main part that you didn't chop is still there. The base, that's not going to be in the fire. Then the Prophet he said, إِلَّا وَاحِدٍ, except one. So this text, Imam al-Tirmidhi, he said, هذه عبارة ليس مفسرا. He said, this is a statement that has not been explained. It's general. So that means it's open for interpretation. So what people do, they say, if you're from these sects, now we're from the sect that's not those sects, we're going to Jannah, y'all going to hell. Because the prophet, he said all of them will be in the fire except one. So you make the claim that I'm the one, they're the one, we're the one, and then everybody else, according to the text, is going to the fire. But the scholars that said, Rasulullah mentioned this, it could be understood, all of those groups that broke off, they're going to hell. Because in reality, they could be looked at and blamed for making their own millah, their own deen. Because once you change from the deen of the Prophet said, for what? It's rejected. So, those people will go to the fire because they changed the deen. And the people who didn't change the deen, they're going to go to the Jannah. Another way the scholars said it could mean, because again, Imam al-Tirmidhi said this has not been expounded upon or explained by the Prophet or his Sahaba. The text is general. So that means people who come after their generations, they can look and elucidate and try to explain what they think it means. Therefore, some scholars, they said the other meaning is that those people that the Prophet is talking about will be in the fire, he already said, min ummati, so they Muslim. But they broke off. They separated. Kanu Shi'an. Shi'an here means they broke off from the mainstream. As Allah mentioned in the Quran. So they said, but these people, they have the tawheed. They didn't die upon shirk. They didn't die upon kufr. They didn't die upon nifaq. They didn't die upon major bid'ah, as we explained yesterday. Grave worshiping is bid'ah, but it's major bid'ah, meaning it takes you from Islam. Because it's intrinsic with shirk in the worship of that person who's deceased. Making tawaf around the grave of a dead person because he was great and you want to reverence him is the act of shirk. Because Allah told us to do that, to reverence him while going around the Kaaba. So those people, they won't come out the fire even though they're Muslim. But if they just have major sin, and we have many hadith about the people, the Prophet said, As'al al-nas li shafa'ati ahlul kaba'ir, or kama. The people who are most deserving for me to intervene on their behalf in the day of judgment, or the people from my ummah who died with major sins. That means they will come out if they touch the fire and go to Jannah. So that hadith about the 73 sects is normally, and it has a lot of interpretations. I just gave you the main two. That everybody's going to be in the fire who deviates from what the Prophet came with, and they won't come out. Because the hadith, the Prophet said, Kulluhum finnar, all of them in the fire. But it didn't say until when and how, if it's temporary, if it's eternal. So people use that to their advantage, and if they say, well, you from Ahlul Bid'ah, so unless you're going to the fire, you're not. Because the text is open. But an open text can be debated when it comes to interpretation of what it means. And that's why Imam Tirmidhi made it clear this statement of the Prophet has not been explained. Meaning pump your brakes, take it easy. Because it could mean this or it could mean that. Which is not a straight indictment against anybody like they use it, Allahumma musta'an, today and before, with regards to who's on it and who's off it. This is the second point we mentioned yesterday, that shaitan will come, the trick of the devil when it comes to them al-bid'ah or muqtada'in. Them means to be blamed. Them. Almost the same word as them. Them. You just change the harakat. It's wrong, so you blame. Them, blame. Them, sin. Same context, just change the harakat. Them, yani muqtada'in, yani wal bid'ah. The blame of the people who are innovators and innovation is blame. So he's going to come and get you to make innovation. It's going to come to get you to be amongst those people who are the innovators. So again, it's another trick. Most of the time we talk about this issue of innovation, like the Shaikh, he said, the brother said, well, he just made innovation because he left the salat with no kufa in his head. Allah musta'an. What is innovation? Innovation has a linguistic meaning and a religious meaning. Linguistically, it means ما حدثوا ما حدثوا means يعني الإحداث ما حدثوا يعني من قبل. Something إحداث means something that's new. This term إحداث, like we say inventions or a new, something comes out. This is إحداث. It's general. يعني and then they said يعني أحدثوا من بعد, that has never been made before. So something that comes about for the first time. This is the linguistic meaning of bid'ah. That's why they said the microphone when they play games is bid'ah. Rather the carpet is bid'ah. The lights, okay. But that's not the context we're talking about when people do something that's understood to be bid'ah religiously. It's different. Allah is before Rahim, so you think He's going to blame stuff that makes it easy for you, like carpet and microphones and air conditioning and cars? No. He gave the people the ability to do that for that reason.
That's
He's not going to blame you. And He allowed you to do it. But He also gave you the ability to do sunnah or bid'ah in religion. And if you do that, innovation in the religion, He's going to blame you. So that point, why am I mentioning that? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he clearly mentioned right is rejected. And so bid'ah, the scholars, they said, it means something that has been introduced for the first time. But when you talk about religiously, they say something that has been introduced for the first time. Here's the point. لِيُقَرِّبُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. And you do it with the intention to draw closer to Allah, to draw nearer to Allah, to become more beloved to Allah. Once you add that, khalas. If there's no text, bid'ah. Or if it goes against the text, bid'ah. Because this is another thing. People sometimes call things bid'ah that say, well, did the Prophet do it? And you may say, no, the Prophet didn't do it. It's okay, then it's bid'ah, leave it. But the term bid'ah, just like sunnah, which is the opposite of bid'ah, meaning you do something, basically the Prophet didn't do, and you're doing it with intention, Allah is going to be pleased, Allah is going to love me, I'm going to become more righteous, I'm going to gain more merit, more brownie points. You need a text when it comes to that. So bid'ah, also, if it's something that doesn't agree with the sunnah, it doesn't have to be just sunnah, the Prophet. And what is sunnah? Sunnah is broad. Sometimes sunnah means your aqidah. And most of the time in the books of the people of the past, they were talking about bid'ah, they're talking about an aqidah. Not in this shape, difference with that shape, or this shape he uses dhikr beads. Because that's debatable if you can use dhikr beads as it relates to making dhikr. But there's no debate when you do an action, Allah already knew the action before you did it, when you do it and after you do it. That's an aqidah. So if somebody has that bid'ah, now they're going to talk and come against that person because this is an aqidah. If the person is rocking while he's reciting Quran, he never rocks. When it's a song, a movie, he's bored, they're tired, they never rock. Only when they read the Quran. He learned that. Bid'ah. Why? Because you're attaching that rocking to only when you read the Quran. But if you say, I'm just doing it. I don't believe it's from the religion, but I believe it's okay. Then it's not aqidah. Aqidah is what you believe in your heart to be a mainstream part of the religion. Iman. It has to do with the day of judgment and like this. You're just doing something doesn't necessarily mean it's aqidah.
Shaykh, can I answer that? What you mean is that if you're doing it to please Allah Ta'ala,
then that changes it. It changes
the
it.
bid'ah. If you're doing something that hasn't been done,
Yes.
and in your heart you believe that it's drawing you close to Allah Ta'ala without a test, without evidence, and that's a bid'ah.
Yeah, and that's an aqidah.
That's an aqidah.
Yeah. But that one who's rocking, they say, oh, well, my sheikh taught me this. It's not necessarily aqidah. Let that person, but this is making me close to Allah. Khalas, now it becomes an aqidah.
Because you believe that.
Yeah, because you believe that. It's something that will draw you close to Allah and something to give you married and make you need more righteous and so forth. So this point I'm mentioning, when the Shaykh, he mentions the second point, I didn't cover this yesterday, the shaitan will come to attack you as it relates to blameworthy bid'ah and people of bid'ah, then normally what you hear, bid'ah is what the Prophet didn't do. And that's true. But also bid'ah is what goes against what the Prophet came with. So sometimes the Prophet didn't do nothing. And you do it. It's bid'ah. But sometimes the Prophet didn't do that, but you do something and it doesn't go against what the Prophet did do, it's not bid'ah. So like for example, the person prayed and didn't have a kufa on his head. They said that's bid'ah. But the Prophet covering his head in prayer or not is not part of the prayer. Him covering his head in prayer or not is customary. Like him wearing his stole above the ankle, halfway up his calf. But from the religion, he said anything that's below the ankle. So the Prophet didn't wear his above the ankle, sitting above the ankle bone. He wore his garments halfway up the calf. So if you wear your garment above the ankle, not halfway up the calf, somebody can say, well, did the Prophet do that? The answer is no. He didn't wear it above the ankle. He wore it halfway up the calf. But does that go against the sunnah of the Prophet? No, why? Because sunnah also means his statement. And he said, Ma asfali min al-izar, ma asfali, yani min al-izar, ma asfali min al-ka'bayn min al-izar, huwa fi an-nar, kama qala. Whatever is below the ankle, and he specified izar because that was what they would wear, like pants that we wear. But he said ma in the beginning, which the scholar said, this man in Arabic, it means alladhi, anything that you wear. So that's why when they explain it, they say your coat, your thobe, your pants, your overcoat, your shawl, anything. But the Prophet emphasized izar because they were people of izar. They would get the picture. Because they would wear izar sometimes with just a shirt. So what's the point? The Prophet didn't wear his above the ankle, where you can put your hand on your ankle and then the garment is right above the ankle bone. Rather, he wore it as an action, nisfa saqa, halfway up his calf. So the term, that which goes against the sunnah, again, Iblis came to play with you, attack you on that issue. That's one of the problems we suffering from now, but we don't see it in context, so we just think they're straight with on the sunnah. No. If the Prophet did something that's religiously binding on you to do it, and you don't do it, and you have the ability, and you do something else, now this is bid'ah. But if the Prophet didn't do something, but you yourself do something different, but it doesn't oppose what the Prophet did, nor said, it's not bid'ah.
So in other words, Sheikh, if an individual, Prophet Salam, wore his izar halfway up his calf, right to the top, and a brother wears him just above the ankle, you can't make a difference of it. You can't draw a distinction and say that he's making bid'ah because he's not wearing it.
Exactly. Why? Because the Prophet said, don't wear whatever you wear below the ankle, but he wore his above his ankle but up to half his calf. So one is a statement, you call it sunnah, and the other is action, you call it sunnah. So as long as you don't oppose either one of those meanings of sunnah, then you still follow the sunnah. But people will say you're opposing the sunnah. Why? Because you didn't do what the Prophet did. Like, for example, wearing something on your head in prayer. They can say this is sunnah, meaning a custom of the Prophet, as an Arab, but not as a Prophet. Because Allah mandated him to put something on his head when he prays. Had Allah mandated him that as a Prophet, then we would say you don't have something on your head is wajib, his bid'ah. But as a Prophet, as an Arab in the desert, it's hot, they wore the thing on their head. As a prophet, as an Arab, as a person in the desert, their clothing was the izar, the qamis, that we call a thobe. They also had sarawiyah, baggy pants that they wear as a custom. So if you don't want sarawiyah, the baggy pants they had, you don't want izar, you don't wear what we call the thobe, qamis, tawil, or qasir, the long shirt or the short shirt. Somebody would say, actually, this is bid'ah because you're not dressing like the Prophet. No, it's customary. But what's religiously right is you wear clothes that don't show your aura, don't show your scrotums and your butt cheeks, be it male or female. That's what's now you're opposing the sunnah. But the literally clothing, I got a kufi, and to be honest with you, kufi wasn't in the time of the Prophet. This is a Turkish concept, if I'm not mistaken. I hear sunnah to put a kufi. The Prophet didn't wear a kufi, it was not around his time. They had amama, the thing that you wrap as a turban, and you read all that hadith, that's what he had on his head, a turban. And when he went to war, the mikvah, the chains that keep when they hit you with the thing and them bust your skull wide open. You don't read the hadith where he had a taqiyya or a kufi. Wasn't around. So my point is how the Shaikh is bringing, the Shaikh Tom will come as it relates to the issue of bid'ah and its people. Bid'ah and its people is blameworthy. But you also got to understand the concept. If the person says you oppose the sunnah, that can mean you oppose the action or statement. But it doesn't always mean the Prophet did something. You doing this, did the Prophet do it? You say no, okay, then it's bid'ah. No. Because we gave a clear example of the garment again. The Prophet didn't wear his just above the ankle. So if you wear that, nobody can say, why you got your thobe just above the ankle? That's not the sunnah. The Prophet used to have his up half above his calf, raise it up half above the calf. If you don't, this is bid'ah. Nobody can say that. Why? Because the Prophet told you to do something. But he did a little more than what he told you that's allowed because that was his custom. You can move easier if it's halfway up the calf versus just above the ankle bone. To get on the animal, to move, if you're fighting. So it was customary. From his sunnah, if there are two ways that's halal, he would take the easy of the two. What's easier? Have it above your ankle only or halfway up the calf? Halfway up the calf. So it's sunnah in that regard, but not sunnah in the regard that it's an act of worship or it's something that you have to do, and if you don't, now you're doing bid'ah or you are an innovator. You get the point. You got to get that point. Because once you know that point, then anything that comes like that, you can use this to gauge what's being said, if it's right or wrong. Nah,
but they do that.
Who does they do that?
They do. I mean, in terms of some of the those who claim Salafia, those that wear it up to halfway up the thing. If you come in with yours just above the ankle, and theirs is up above, it's like you committing a bid'ah.
But that's why I'm mentioning this is in the point that the Shaikh has mentioned, how the shaitan will play on the person when it comes to blame and innovationist people. If it's real innovationist people, then yeah, it should be blamed.
Yeah.
But if it's fake bid'ahist people, you can't be blamed. And that's one of the tricks we have today, even though the Shaikh wrote this book, and this point is talking from another angle, this is relevant. Based on what we just said, the same thing is relevant. You can't, and see, Shaitan is using it like a quarter, you have heads and tails. If you talk about how the Shaikh is talking about, he's talking about simply people doing bid'ah, and they don't see no wrong with it because they say, oh, I'm only intending good. The Shaitan got them to not blame bid'ahist people. But for us, the people who claim sunnah, they're blaming you for something that's sunnah in the name of bid'ah. And this is another trick of the shaitan. It's in our time. With the issue of blaming bid'ahist people. Some bid'ah is bogus. It's not really bid'ah. Some people are bid'ah, but they're not really people of bid'ah. Where did that trick come from? Iblis. And this is one of the examples that we're given from our time. This is one of the examples that we have been blessed by Allah to see from a book that's written way back then, but it's relevant. Because they didn't have that in the time of the Shaykh. If you wore it above the ankle, above the calf, that's it. But that's us with this cult mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You see. So this, when you talk about bid'ahist people, it's a serious issue. It's blameworthy. It's not okay, like we said, dhikr and jama'ah. Yeah, if you're doing it for learning purposes, but people do it in unison, and this is akhi. This is pleasing to Allah. Mata yakun. Since when? The whole masjid, la ilaha illallah, after the imam, and they're happy and rejoicing, the tears rolling down their eyes, and they're feeling good, and my imam is rising. Brother, you gonna tell me this is bid'ah? No. The dhikr is not bid'ah. Saying is not bid'ah. The way that you do it is bid'ah.
Yeah, no, there you go.
The way that you do it is bid'ah. This is called bid'ah idafiyah, by the way. Idafa. Idafa is connecting. So bid'ah, you have bid'ah asli, and I'm getting deep, but I'm going to finish the points. But I have to clarify this point. Then I'm going to move on. You have two types of bid'ah. You have bid'ah asli. Like you have two types of kufr. You have kufr asli and kufr yani idafi. Meaning, the origin of this thing is kufr. The origin of this thing is bid'ah. That's asli. But bid'ah idafiyah or kufr idafiyah means it became bid'ah because of the circumstance. But it's not really bid'ah. It became bid'ah because of an action that was done the wrong way.
The same thing, like when I was talking to you about the Surah Yasin and reading.
Exactly.
Not Surah Yasin itself, but the action.
The way it's being applied. What it's being applied to and how and the time. Yes, exactly. So, what's my point? This, when the brothers opened these books, which is dangerous, and Shaykh Mukbil talked about this. Shaykh Fawzan talked about this. These are their, Shaykh Mukbil said clearly the book, and this is different, but some of the same quotes is in this book, The Tricks of Shaitan, by Ibn Joseph. The book, Shah al-Bahari. Shah Imam al-Bahari. This, Shaykh Mukbil said, is a weapon for cultism and fanaticism. While he's not blaming the imam, but there's some stuff in there that cults and fanatic people can use. And that's one of the main books that this particular movement they use. They'll be harsh against people that are primarily Sunni, Salafi like them. Because you take the text that was for a time and a place and a people and a government and you bring it and put it in this this time and the place and the people and the government, and it don't fit. They used to say in Jahiliyyah, if it don't fit, what? Don't force it. Just relax and let it flow. Now somebody said, wow, he mentioned that stuff. No, we're talking about context. Context. If it don't fit, don't force it. Just relax and let it flow. Don't try to make something that it's not. Let the religion take its own course. But when you have something up your sleeve, so this is the second point about blaming bid'ah on his people, the Shaikh he mentioned. And this is important. And you'll have like statements, for example, that are relevant, but again, like we said, a person can't take a statement and just use it from those people of the past today. You can't take a statement that's about bona fide people of knowledge, scholars, and their opponents that were people that were scholars, but they were very deviant. And deviant meaning in the belief. And they used to call to that belief and push that belief, and they used to transgress against the opposition. You can't take that and bring it to a common folk and use it in a non-Muslim country. You can't. These were people that were in societies that were all Muslim. Bloodshed. Brother don't even want to stand up for the hawk in our society. You talking about bloodshed over this, man. And they had to deal with these issues between themselves and governments. And bid'ah normally was in aqidah, the core of what changes the religion. So yes, they're going to stick their fingers in the ear of their ears, stick their fingers in the ear when that person come in and talk. Just like they said, the da'if is one of the Salaf, the man came in talking, he said, yeah, Ibn, he said, oh my son, put your fingers in your ears, so verily the heart is weak. So the boy put his fingers in his ear like his father said. But, these people weren't talking about something that you can be trivial. They were talking about stuff that nobody would agree from the Muslims, because this is changing the religion. That type of bid'ah. That's why yesterday we mentioned bid'ah kubra, major bid'ah, and sugra. Why? Because if you don't understand that, you just throw everything under bid'ah and people will go crazy. That's the difference between major bid'ah and minor bid'ah. And when you create these things, that's why Prophet Sallallahu he mentioned, and in the hadith where he's talking about bid'ah and sunnah, he said that the people will come and spread an evil in the name of sunnah. They will spread something that's not sunnah, but it will really be bid'ah, like the dog that bites you with rabies. That thing will spread. The dog bites you or any animal rabies, it's going to spread. The Prophet mentioned bid'ah in the name of sunnah, spread like rabies when they bite you. Once you get it, that's it. It's all through your body. So this, is the second point. And this is the third thing, the fourth thing, that was three. Talbis wal ghurur. Talbis. The fourth thing we mentioned yesterday, talbis. Shaitan tricking you in ghurur. That means he makes something seem pleasing to you, or fair seeming, where you treat it as, it's not a big deal. But it's a big deal. Like, for example, illegal intercourse. You really think people who make an adultery, fornication, think that it's heavy? By nature, they wouldn't do it. Trust me, if they thought it was heavy. They treat it as light. Oh, no, man, we're in America. That's what we do. I only sleep with her. Like, in our society, the lady says, I've been with him 15 years faithfully. But the Muslim countries, if you say that to the Shaikh, he doesn't understand. How can you be with somebody 15 years and you're not married and still call her faithful? Well, in our society, you could, because that's also considered common law marriage. And that's accepted in Islam, by the way. It's urf of the people. Urf of the people. What's known from the custom of the people. Okay, zina is not okay. But if you with somebody just living with them as a family in the same house, you eat and drink. Of course, you have relations, because that's what husband and wife do. You have kids, you file your taxes together. And this country used to be in many states, and they stopped it because of lawsuits, recognizing it. But it used to be considered, you're considered married in the eyes of the people. You're not considered, that's my girl Shaikh. No, you're considered married.
Mm-hmm.
You can file taxes and put that person's name, and you don't have no marriage license, but you've been living together, filing a tax for 15 years, they consider you married.
And the judge will rule in your favor.
Yeah. So Islam accepts that. You understand? Islam honors that.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So this is what's called oath of the people. But we're talking about somebody who's sleeping around. He was with Susie last night. Tonight he's with Betty. And when he left Betty, he went with, Roxanne. In this country, the shaitan tells the beast with glory. He makes it, nah, man, I'm just, I ain't no gay. I like women. He make it like, hey, somebody got to get it. Yeah, stuff like this, you know what I'm saying? Or, what's the problem? You know what I'm saying? What, you must be like square, Or my uncle, was a player. She's trying to make it light of it. This is glory. Make you think, oh, I won't be punished. For the Muslim, Allah forgive me, Allah forgive me, Allah forgive me. That's glory. Glory means he's deceived you. He make you see it in a way that really you being played. So that's the fourth trick of the shaitan. He make you he'd make their deeds seem, okay. Because again, if you seem the deed to be reprehensible, you have to really be an evil person to do it. Most of the time, you're not going to do it by nature if you see it to be really bad. So he makes it look okay to you. You're only with the girl talking. It's okay. You're just holding her hand. You're in public. She's a good girl. Her family's respected. He's making that seem okay. It's not okay. It's a minor sin. Don't touch somebody's hand that's not, lawful for you to touch. Okay, now, the next step. You kiss her goodnight. I just kissed her, we had a nice night. She's so sweet. She's pretty. Who wouldn't want to kiss her? See, he's still raw. Until now, now you go out, and then finally you make a zina. But even make that, listen, you couldn't resist, she is pretty. You just keep going. So this chapter, the Shaikh is bringing in the book, how the shaitan does that. It's from his tricks, his deception. You know what I'm saying? In this country, alcohol, selling beer and wine and pork, all of it's haram. But the Muslim, when you talk with him, he don't want to hear it because he doesn't see it to be an issue. He said, man, what are you talking about? That's why we came here to get paid, to make money. You went in our country, starving, this and that. Back home, we was the poorest people. Now in America, we're the richest. One Yemeni, he told me that. He said, back home, we considered the poorest people in the world. He said, now in America, we're the richest. We got all the stores. We paid $90,000 cash for the Lexus Jeep. I paid $250,000 cash, for my house. He said, listen, I don't deal with no river. I brought my house cash, Allahu Akbar. But your money is filthy. See how the shaitan deceived him? Riba is bad. Allah mentioned war from him and his messenger, but what did he mention about the one who sells khamr? Let alone the one who drinks it, the one who transports it, makes it, witnesses the contract. See, he made it seem fair seem. That's number 4. Number 5, the tricks that the shaitan has with people when it comes to aqa'id, when it comes to the principles of the religion and the people's deen, trick you. Like the famous trick we're suffering from now, there's something called ghiba and something called ghiba mubah. What is ghiba? Backbite. So if you come over here and bite me in the top part of my back, that's Libra.
Talking about something.
Nah, talking about somebody.
No, I mean,
So if I talk about you now, I say, I'm one man. He's a nice brother. That's Libra.
Talking about them in a way that they don't, that
They would
it's
just
offensive to them. Something that's not common.
You wouldn't like it, huh? So if somebody sitting in front of me and said, you know, Ukkasha, you're mean. That's Libra. But then I frowned up, look at him, and I don't say nothing. And everybody said, man, the Shaikh didn't like that. I hope you don't black out. That was Libra.
In your absence.
My absence, Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
Because Libra comes from the word Ga'iba. Ga'iba, someone is not there. Ghaib, another extension of the word, something you can't see. Why? Because it's not there. Ghiba, something that you're saying, that person is not there to witness it. Why? Because it's behind his back, meaning out of his presence. So, this principle, the Shaikh is mentioning this point, the trick of the devil that relates to aqa'id, principles and foundations in the people's deen. Ghiba, halal, haram. Haram. Tayyib. If it's haram, then that means the origin of backbiting is that you can't do it. But the trick he's played now, because there is an exception to the rule called ghiba mubah. There may be some cases where you have to say something about somebody behind their back and you don't like it, but it's absolutely necessitated.
Like Imam, the wali has to investigate the brother for the sister, and she has to tell the sister about the brother, and he's not there.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Could that be, that's not considered backbiting? I mean, you're investigating somebody.
Yes. And we know this from the Prophet when the lady came to get married, and she asked about two people. She said Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah.
Go ahead, Shaikh.
They ain't there. She went to ask the Prophet. They both proposed to me. Like, which one do I take? They're both companions. This one is handsome. He's handsome. They both, from the Quraysh. What do I do? Like, both of them, I'm flattered. They both asked about me. Now, you're not supposed to ask about somebody over your brother. If I know you asked about Susie or Mariam, I'm not supposed to go behind your back and say, hey, Mariam, I'm looking to get married. I'm interested in you. You're not supposed to do that. But if this person doesn't know, and that person doesn't know their affairs, he went today, and this person goes next week, there's no sin on that. Because when you know when you do that. So obviously they both asked. They went to the parents. They asked. She found out that they both inquired. She went to the Prophet, and the Prophet spoke about both of them. He said, don't marry Muawiyah. He said, because he's some scholars they give explanations. Some of them they said because he's poor. But really, when you listen to, I mean, and people translate it like that, but really the Prophet, he mentioned this person acts like he doesn't have it. I mean, he said bakhil. Anybody who understands the word bakhil, you can be poor and stingy, but it's like the concept of being arrogant. You can't be poor and arrogant. In our society, yeah. A person is poor and he's stingy. And he's arrogant and he's poor. Normally people will have something. They are the ones arrogant because they have something. And the one who has something, he don't want to give it. So that makes him bakhil, stingy. And they say, the one who doesn't have something can't give it. That's a proverb of the Arabs. People who have something can't give it. So how can I be stingy and I don't have nothing to give? How can I be arrogant and I'm poor and ran down and nobody? So he said about Muawiyah, he fakes like he doesn't have. He mentioned clearly, or bakhil. He's stingy. Meaning you're going to suffer. He's not going to give you what you need. He's going to act like you don't have it. He's tight-fisted. To show you the man, the biggest right of the lady, he has to take care of. And then he said that don't marry the other person He said because لا يزال لا يزال رفع أصاعه عن عتق. He said because he won't keep his stick off your neck. It said stick off the neck means he won't cease to beat you. He's an abuser. He said, Inkihi Zayd. Go ask to marry Zayd. That hadith is a clear indication, it's an exception to the rule. Those two Sahaba, of course, they wasn't like that because they're honor. They wanted to marry the lady. Oh man, you messed up my game, Ya Rasulullah. Allah Musta'an, I thought you was the messenger with your Sahaba. What am I going to do now? I got to keep looking. Of course, human error. That's how they feel. But this is the exception to the rule. So the game of shaitan and qawaid, diniyat, and issues of deen, he played with you. So he's made the people flip. This is the origin now. Talk about somebody, and ghiba, not talking about somebody, that's the exception to the rule. No, not talking about somebody is the origin, and talking about them when it's necessity and the proper time and place, when you have to, is the exception to the rule. So they flipped it. Like Abu Sa'id, he mentioned Sa'id in Philadelphia one time, he said they switched it. This is the origin, and this is the exception. They switched them around. And that's what he just talked about. He said, no, it's permissible. No, Ghiba Mubah is permissible, but it's an exception to the rule. It's not the rule. It's not the foundation. It's a branch that's allowed when you need it. So this is shaitan. It's trick. Wow. And we said also, the diniyat, the Muslims with this united religion. This is a trick in deen, a diniyat, the religion issue. The Jew, the Christian, the Muslim, we're all one, united. This is a talbis iblis. And to the point you hold hands, he prays, and he says in the name of his Lord, then he adds something, which is shirk. Then the Christian, Heavenly Father, we ask you today, and the Muslims stand and hold their hands smiling. It's not talbis iblis fi dinina, fi diniyat, as it relates to religious, deen affairs. And then the Muslim that he mentions, his dua, Ameen, bless us all, protect us all, Allah, make their, efforts good. Like they said, the Shaikh Bassam told me when Charlotte, he said this is a big trick that shaitan played. He said the Christians, they want the Muslims to come. And the Muslims going to give dawah in the churches. They said, okay, no problem. You are neighbors, we are neighbors, come. So Muslims, they go, talking to them about Islam. They let the Muslims read Quran, recite the book of Allah in the church. Mary and lambs and pictures of Mary and Jesus all over this joint. Muslims there reading Quran. And you in there smiling. Those people that Allah is talking about in that ayah, that you with them and you smile as if they're God and you got it. They let them call the adhan. They call the adhan in the church. This is dawah. This is what Allah He loves, brother. Dawah. When the program was over, they ate, had food, this and that, and they made sure they didn't feed pork to the Muslims. They said, okay. Next week is our turn. We're coming to your mosque. So the height of that is because the deal was, we'll let you come with neighbors and but we got to come to your mosque too, okay? So when the Muslims did that, look at the trick. And the Christians came to the mosque, just as the Muslims were worshiping in the church, guess what? The Christians were worshiping in the mosque. So they was in the church, Jesus, singing and dancing, hallelujah, in the mosque. And the Muslims couldn't say nothing, tell me it's not a trick, be diniyat in the issue of how you making deen merge and this and that. Yeah, alhamdulillah, look at this. So this is a serious issue. Yesterday we stopped, which is number 7, the shaitan will come to trick the people in the issue of ilm with ulama. We make some problem for you in the ilm, what ulama comes. So people they say, wait a minute, how could they do that? They're scholars. You know, and they're making fitna, you know, and this and that. I don't want to hear nothing about no alim or scholar. I hate they're human. That's why the Shaikh, this 7th point, the shaitan will make the problem يعني في العلم والعلماء في فنون العلم, in the issues of ilm in general and the scholars in certain areas of the religion. This is why people, again, are mutasahid, very lukewarm when it comes to certain things that common folk that Allah bless the builders who say, no, that's not right. Because the shaitan made them say, oh, no problem, but you know, we're going to make it easy for the people. No. Making it easy for the people don't allow you to change the thing that's haram to halal. Like the famous thing that said you can make loans and credit cards in America because this is what the people do. They took the customs of the people. If it's from the customs of the people, it becomes halal. It becomes okay for you to do. That's when the custom is halal. From the custom of the people here, they smoke skunk weed. The Muslim could come here and say it's from the custom of the people. It's common for people to light up a joint in their car in your house and he can smoke weed and it's okay because it's the custom of the people. No. From the custom of the people here, not that, but it's a custom. Titty bars. Going to drink beer. All type of casino, boats, and from the customs of the people. It's from our culture. So you mean a Muslim can come here and say, this is from the orth of the people, since I'm in America, it's okay for me, because from the Sharia perspective, whatever the people are doing as a culture, if you're there, then you can do it because you're there with them and their culture. No. It don't work like that. You see. But you'll have some people say that you're in America, so whatever they do, you can do. So you wear pants and shirt. Okay, but you can't wear pants and shirt that shows your private. Italian shoes with the point of you can kill a roach, and the skinny jeans showing the thighs, and your, like Al-Albani said, Heliatane or Baylatane. Heliatane, the 2 heels in the back, Baylatane, the 2 eggs. He said that about when a man make a ruku', the chick said, haram. Because he's praying and you see Heliatane or Baylatane. From the back you can see define his butt cheeks and the scrotums in the ruku'. Al-Albani said, haram. You're not supposed to see that from no man. And I know like brothers say, oh wow, you know, it's extreme. No, it ain't extreme, man. You don't have no salah. At least it's makruh. At most, it nullifies your salah. All of the scholars of the past said. And you pray and your hour will show. We're not talking about the ladies, we're talking about the men.
Yeah.
He got a short shirt, muscle shirt. He said, Allah Akbar, the shirt move, you see his butt cracking. I think, light of juice. Salah in qata'a is broken. Because Satr al-Awra, Allahu musta'an, min shurut salah. It's from the conditions of salah. To the point, even the women ask, well, I'm in the house by myself, nobody sees, can I pray in my pajamas? If they're see-through, no. Because that's not Satr al-Awra. You're not covering what needs to be covered, even though nobody's there. Allah's there.
That's right.
It's not from the way to pray. So what's the point? When you talk about the trick of the devil with regards to ilm, ulama, and the different departments of knowledge, so many examples. So many examples. People writing hadith that's fabricated. They say we have a good intention to get them to do things. But you can't lie on the Prophet. You can't lie on the Prophet. Can't invigorate people to do stuff based upon lies and say it's okay. So that was yesterday. I mean, we stopped there. The next, the 7th, that's the actually 6.7, and you the trick of the devil upon the awam, the common folk. tricks the common folk. There's many ways. One of the main ways they mention in the books how this is done, he makes the people say, oh, well, I'm not from a scholar, I'm not a prophet, I'm not a companion, so sins are okay because I'm not those people. This is a trick that Shaitan plays, deceives the common folk. Whenever you try to talk to somebody, they say, I'm not a prophet. I'm not from the Sahaba, I'm not a scholar. Okay, but that doesn't mean that, your life is okay to be in shambles. Religion and being upright is just not for prophets, his companions, scholars. No. Everybody has to fear Allah.
Shaikh,
to the best of their ability. Now,
I have an example for you.
Nah.
The brother that told me when he was a companion with a brother who was a Muslim, and the brother was playing music, and he told the brother that the Prophet ﷺ never listened to music. You know what the brother said? I'm not the prophet.
hold on. And he's right. He's not the prophet. But that doesn't mean you can listen to music if he's not the prophet.
It goes to the point that you were saying.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. Yeah, the example the Shaykh has mentioned. Somebody told a brother, prophet never listens to music. Yeah, but I'm not the prophet. So you're going to say that when you eat a pork sandwich, prophet didn't eat pork. Yeah, but I'm not the prophet. Prophet didn't have no girlfriend, but I'm not the prophet. Everything I'm not the prophet. I'm not the prophet. You see the trick of the Shaitan?
Yeah.
And that person might really feel and believe that. Okay, I hear you, brother, but I'm not the prophet. That's for him. Not me, I'm just an old chink, but you're a Muslim. You have to strive and rise to the occasion that's better than that. Especially when it's your heart involved. It's your heart. So now, number 8. The issue of making the deception for the Rabat, Ibadat. Those who are the worshippers and those who are devoted worshippers. So it makes a problem in Ibadah, that word, the Rabat, in the worship and for the righteous worshippers. So, for example, in Ibadat, again, people when they add, thinking it's going to make them closer to Allah, this is his deception in Ibadat. One of the main things we have a problem with around the world today in Ibadat is celebrating the birthday of who? Birthday of the Prophet. This originally is not Ibadat, but they made it Ibadat. They made it an act of worship. They said, oh, we're doing this because we love him and out of respect. No, it's not Ibadat. You do the celebration, and that means they singing and special foods. They in the masjid, like rocking and, like partying. But it's something that's really Ibadat. When we talk about, again, dua, we mentioned this a lot. Brother say, so you telling me to make dua is bid'ah? No, we're saying that there are certain things the Prophet didn't do. One of them that he didn't do is to raise his hands after the salah. We don't have any hadith that he did it. We'll have him raising the hands before salah. We'll have him raising hands during the khutbah. We'll have him raising hands, during the qunut. While he's standing, but not after he taslim, salam alaikum rahmatullah, salam alaikum rahmatullah, and then his hands go. We're going to have one hadith, not one hadith that's authentic. There are 2 hadith in the Bulugh al-Maram that are not authentic, and Ibn Hajar said if you combine them together, this makes it okay, and makes those 2 weak hadith hasan. But, the scholars can make mistakes, and this is an obvious mistake because both of those hadith, when you research the chain and you go back and see what other big scholars, like Ibn Hajar said before and after him, they prove that those 2 hadith can be merged and upgraded. They're too discreditable, they're too da'if. It's like you try to fix like those batteries. There was no way we had to, charge those batteries. It couldn't be used. But these batteries that were a week old or 4 days old, I'm sure some juice has been drained from it, we can still use it. So this is the same thing in Ilm al-Hadith, not the Hadith. If something's too far gone, you can't use it. So the raising of the hands after salah, raising the hands for dua, raising the hands when you have a need, okay, people, they do this. And if you pray the 5 daily prayer and you do it. Just like getting up and making your dhikr while you're walking instead of sitting after 5 salah. The Prophet didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a necessity, you can do it. Or praying, real quick, meaning without praying with the Jama'ah, and then you leave, although you heard the Adhan, you don't stay and pray in the Jama'ah. The Prophet didn't do it. But that's acceptable if you have to go.
Mm-hmm.
We know that from the hadith of the man who broke off and prayed because the salat was too long and left, and he was blamed. Mu'adh called him a munafiq.
Mm-hmm.
And that story, the Prophet said, but you know what? You weren't supposed to do that because you got to pray with the Jama'ah. The man said, listen, I worked hard all day, wrestling with the goat and sheep. And mind you, again, we have to remember, most of the time they pray Salat al-Isha when? Late.
Mm-hmm.
Almost almost midnight. Why? Because it's hot. People need to go home, eat, lay down, rest. Ain't no air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no fans. Ain't no iced tea, lemonade. Give me my Pepsi. Give me my Poland Spring. What none of that? Well, no, put some ice in this cup. So to rejuvenate for Isha, man gotta lay down.
Mm.
Isha might be in, but still, okay, it came in at 8:30, but I'm wiped out. I made, Maghrib. Let me lay down, and so the Prophet was merciful. If you lay the salat, or make it late, you're still in the time frame, but it's not in the earliest time period. And that's how the Isha was most of the time. That's why as Ali and Fatima, I like to study again, as y'all pray with the why, because you just not too long ago, Ali left the Jama'ah praying Isha. Just go ahead and get your witr in. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, and Fusna be getting that. Oh, Messenger of Allah, we good. We ain't got to pray it. Our soul is in Allah's hands. We did Isha. Prophet was upset because that's, being disrespectful. That's not, being grateful for the name of Allah. You making an argument that's baseless. The Prophet hit his thigh. That's what he would do when he's upset sometimes. He would smack his thigh and he turned his back to him and walked away, and he pulled at the eye and saw the gap. وَكَانَ النَّاسَ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Most people are going to argue about something with no basis. And that was quoted for Ali while it was revealed for Kufar. Is he saying Ali is a kafir? No, but he did an action that reminds me of this ayah. Why don't you say, okay, Ya Rasulullah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nam Ya Rasulullah, La Ya Rasulullah. You give a whole, we good, our soul is in that. That's what we do today. And when somebody get upset, say, what are you getting upset for? Hell, it ain't him. It's me. I don't want to pray. I ain't got to pray. Are you serious? Prophet take that posture with Ali, and it's known that witr wasn't considered wajib upon them in some scholars' opinion. The only thing that's wajib is 5:30 prayer. But the Prophet still got upset because, man, I'm the messenger. I'm calling you the good, and you got the nerve to come out the side of your face with that. With a baseless argument? You see. So why am I mentioning that? Because most of the time the Isha was late. Prophet did that for a reason. So that man who broke off and prayed because Mu'adh was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah, he prays with the Prophet. And then his masjid is across the border of the town of Poughkeepsie, 10 minutes away. They waiting for him because he's praying with the Prophet out of honor. He's the messenger. I'm not going to miss that because you made me imam. No, I'm going to pray with you. My 5 is in. Then when I go to lead them in salah, that's nawafil for me. The man waiting with the other people, you the imam, and then you're going to read Surah Al-Baqarah. I said, man, you got to be out your mind. He stepped out the right, went over the corner, and was Qudwa Allahu Ahad and Falak. And of course, when you have a break in salah, you're going to hear somebody's talking. Sometimes you can hear they talking in the salah. Got their phones at the radio station, loud. Yeah, subhanallah. Now, you praying, talking loud over you in the salah. So imagine You know, at the time, there's no radio, and you can hear clearly, especially if it's quiet. People make it subhanAllah. There's somebody back there praying, in your mouth, like, who the heck is that? Why are you going to pray with us? So the slot was over, my eye turned around, that man was gone, but they said, who was that? They said, oh, that was so-and-so. I said, well, Allah, who was Munafiq? I swear he's a hypocrite. He faked in Islam and in his heart because, look, he couldn't even stay and pray. The salat that the Prophet said is from those who are the most heaviest on the Munafiq. Isha and Fajr. He left as a proof he's a hypocrite. And that reached that man, and he said that, show you people talk. One day they went and told him, ooh, you know what happened? SubhanAllah. When you prayed, the Imam said, same stuff we go through. He didn't go and say, I'm going to punch him in his mouth. Who Munafiq? Who the hell do you think he's talking to? He went to the Prophet. We're saying this time we live in, you snitched. Then you went to the Prophet. Man, you're a sucker. You're a clown. Why you didn't come to me? No. He went to the one that's authority to deal with it. Because maybe had he went to Mu'adh, he probably would have knocked his head off. So the companions was gangsters back in the day. So I can't go to him because I'm going to hurt that joker. He didn't be mad too, but I'm going to go to the Prophet. He ain't going to be calling me no Mu'adh. The Prophet said, go get Mu'adh. He didn't say, oh, he did what? I got him. I'll see you later. I'll take care. No, he said, go get him. Point number 2. You deal with issues, you can't take one side without hearing the other side. I don't care how good it sounds, how much you feel, oh, that person was oppressed, I got to stick up for it. No, you got to have both sides. You got to restrain yourself. Like Allah scolded Nabi Dawood alayhi salam. Didn't take the other person's side. Mu'adh came, the Prophet asked him. He said, yeah. Then he scolded. What's the point? The point is, you can see how people are affected when it comes to ibadah and the actions of those people, the ibadah and the people of worship. You could see it, because again, that man, he went to the side to pray. He went to the side to pray. It doesn't mean he's a hypocrite. And nobody's, free from this. They were companions. And we only mention this to show they were human, not to show their shortcomings. Never talk about what happened by them that's wrong and shortcomings and fitna, except there's a benefit from it. That's a principle the ulama they mention when it comes to the companions, because they have a high honor. And that same principle should be applied with anybody of knowledge. Don't talk about that person just because people look and respect them, but they have something they need from that person. If you cut that rope, how are they going to get their nutrition? And you cut it by putting that person in the bad light, talking about them, saying this. No, keep your mouth shut. And when you don't value the knowledge, you don't value where you're trying to go with the knowledge, then khalas. You just talk. So that issue, the shaitan comes with regards to ubad and ibadat. It comes with regards to worship and the people worship. Now, then when we talk about also worship and the people worship, he said again, fanaticism. When it comes to bid'ah, people again, they make these things up, feeling they're going to get close to Allah. Dhikr, number 9, mentioning the deception of the devil with the zuhad. Zuhad, those people who they only take from the dunya what they need. This is the meaning of zuhad. Taking what you need, not overindulging to the point it takes you away from the religion. Now, this doesn't mean that we're religion of people in shelters and people, sleeping on the streets. And you're going to go to Jannah because most of the people that will be in the Jannah are poor. No. No, the Prophet ﷺ is talking about that because they're the downtrodden. They're the most harmed. So when you're the most harmed and downtrodden, if you're patient as a believer, Allah guarantees you Jannah for your suffering here and the oppression that you went through. But we're not the people that are saying, strive for that. but you don't let the dunya take you out. This is what zuhad means, the one who's taking what he needs, and they're not overindulging to the point that which they take they don't need is going to take them away from the dunya. I mean from the deen, pardon me. So he has a trick for those people. The zuhad, one of the tricks for those people is that they make shirk in their worship now. Because they think leaving the things they don't need is the object. So the man won't eat a meal that regular people would eat. And it's permissible to eat until you're satisfied and it tastes good. But that person will buy the cucumber, that's it. He said, I don't need nothing else. That was sufficient. They have one garment and that's it. He said, I don't need no more clothes, that's it. But that garment might be smelling, dirty. So see, Shaitan tricked them in the issue of zuhad, zuhad, those people who are leaving the worldly stuff that they don't need to do what's displeasing to Allah. Allah don't want you smelling. It's prohibited to be smelly as a Muslim, on purpose. He's doing it purposely. His garment is not clean. It's not attractive. It's one of the main highlights in the hadith of Jibreel. How his throat was, how his hair was. This is from what Allah He loves. Inna Allah tayyib wa la yaqbalu illa tayyibat. Allah is the total good and He loves that which is good. That's why the man asked about the nice clothing, and sandals. Is it given? The Prophet said no. Why? Because that's natural. It makes you feel good when you clean. Get you a haircut if you get your hair cut, or you get your hair braided, or you get it washed and combed if it's down to your shoulder, or whatever. You feel good. I can't say when you shave because but when you wash the neck, and you put the henna in and it's soft, feel good, The day of Eid, what's one of the main things the day of Eid? Put on your best clothing. So that issue, the zuhad, he thinks that staying away from worldly things is going to make him pleasing to Allah. But it's not staying away from worldly things. You need worldly things. It's staying away from those things of the world that will take you from the remembrance of Allah. And that's where he tricked him. And so now, the more you're away from worldly things, before we go to the next point, this is something we're going to tie in. The more you're away from worldly things, the closer your soul becomes to the heavens. And you just think about Ramadan. This is one of the things they mentioned. When you feel your stomach, you feel closer to the earth. Sluggish, tired, this, man, I gotta lay down. I can't pray right now. But when you don't feel your stomach, you feel energetic. Your mind is clean, not fog. You can pray and read Quran. We experienced that in Ramadan, a little bit of nothing fasting. How much ibadah we do. Your soul is closer to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So now the zuhad who's staying away from eating, staying away from, clean clothes, and now he's going to do worship, thinking that this extra worship is going to make me closer to Allah. So you see how he does bid'ah, how he does shirk, it's all tied in because of the concept of zuhd. Even what you don't need, they get closer to Allah. So they go extreme in this issue. Now the next one, the Shaikh said, Pt.3, Iblisi ala Sufiya. How Iblis has tricked the Sufiya. And remember, the Shaikh was in an environment where the Sufis were. We're not talking about somebody is Sufi, like, for example, I mentioned this yesterday in another context, so it will be relevant. Hamza Yusuf will say Shaikh. Somebody say, how can you say that about the Maqiyah Astaghfirullah? Hamza Yusuf, mashallah, he's got knowledge, you studied it, you just jealous, what are you talking about? Imam Zayn, he's not Sufi, he's from the people of the Sunnah. After we say what they say. Go to their websites, they'll tell you, I'm Sufi. Go look at their background, who they studied with, where, in Syria. Sufi. They don't hide it, but there's level of Sufi. They're not extreme Sufi, that you can't pray behind them, for example. As we mentioned that yesterday. The Prophet said, for the one who does the actual bid'ah, falahu and the ones behind him praying. The Prophet said regarding the followers, Falakum, your salat is good, and his bid'ah alayhi is on him. That's when the bid'ah is minor. It's not major. It's not something that will take you outside of Islam, like grave worshiping, making dua to the deceased. That's bid'ah, but that's major bid'ah, meaning it takes you outside of Islam. But if they have dhikr circles where, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abi Sa'id, seen the people in the masjid of the death of the Prophet, and they were counting the pebbles, subhanallah, everybody says subhanallah, subhanallah, everybody says subhanallah, subhanallah, everybody says subhanallah, like this 100 times. With rocks. Alhamdulillah, somebody need, and everybody says alhamdulillah, they put their pebble, alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah. So the Sa'id is from the scholars of hadith, from the scholars of the Sahaba. In the time of the Prophet, he's one of the main ones of knowledge. But what's what? He didn't say nothing. He went and sat on the doorstep of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. What they tell you, just because you have knowledge, you don't always have to say nothing. You could go to somebody who maybe he's more braver, or he has more knowledge, or he's more respected. He could have handled it. He waited. Went and sat on the doorstep of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in the middle of the night close to Fajr. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud come up for Fajr, he's right there. Probably started sitting. He said, I seen the people in the masjid. He described what they were doing. He said, Bihun Allah, miyat marra. ويحمدون الله 100 مرة. They're saying subhanallah 100 times, alhamdulillah 100 times, and they're saying it together, and then one person say it, and they all say it, and each time they say it, they put in couples. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud became upset. And remember, they used to make fun of him when the Prophet was alive, because his legs were very skinny. Read some of the narrations. He climbed a tree one time, and his garment came up, and his legs showed, and they laughed. Look at his beauty, skinny legs. And he was kind of what we would say in our time, like a midget in stature. But that Abdullah Mas'ud, he said he was with the Prophet when at least 70 surah came down, and he knew the meaning of all of them. From the scholars, the fuqaha, the Sahaba. Prophet was married to his aunt, Maymuna, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So Abi Sa'id was the virtue. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Now I'm going to the big Shaikh on this one. When he went to the masjid, they were still doing it. They was doing that joint all night. Still doing it. And the Tulu Fajr, at the time of Fajr. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, what is this? Mahada. What's up? They said, you're just making dhikr, getting close to Allah. He said, had it been something that was pleasing to Allah, we would have beat you to it. The companions of them, because they were tabi'een. So y'all doing something good? Really, mashallah. But guess what? The way that you're doing it, get the point. Not the dhikr itself, the way that you're doing it. And they understood. They didn't say, stuck for Allah. How can you say dhikr is bid'ah and it's not pleasing to Allah? That's where we go. Because we want to go against the grain anyway. They were sincere. They just did something the shaitan came to deceive them in, and they were doing it. But when the nasiha came, the sincerity showed. They left it. They didn't argue. They didn't break off like I probably know Wasil broke off from Imam Hassan al-Basri with the issue of when you do a sin, you're a Muslim, but you did an action of kufr. So now we're not with that. You do a sin, that's it, you're a kafir. And when you die, you don't go to Jannah and go to the Nar, you just been suspended, in between until Allah deals with you on the day of judgment. They got up and broke off. That's the term Mu'tazila. Mu'tazila an imamihim Hasan al-Basri. He said, come on, everybody with me, he's outfit, let's go. So they later, that was with them, left and all the flunkies left, and now there's a break, the Mu'tazila, because they broke off. Tazilu, they separated themselves from his teachings, and they made their own firq. So what's the point? Look at that. The same thing. Breaking off. They didn't take the advice like in the story of Allah Mas'ud. They weren't humble. They broke off, man. We're doing our own thing. Come on, y'all. They did it anyway. Let's go. We're going to go take somebody else's masjid because we ain't got enough courage and money and man to build one or rent one. We'll go somewhere else and plot. That's what they do. But those people in the story of Allah Mas'ud, they submitted. They submitted. So this is how Shaitani plays on the people when it comes to the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and these people who are from the awam, the common folk. Number 11. How the Shaitani plays on the people when it comes to dhikr. And this is in regard to the Sufiya. The point number 9. Because we're talking about how the Sufiya went astray. And we use Hamza Yusuf and Zayd, they're Sufi. But they're not extreme Sufi. But this practice of dhikr and jama'ah, this is one that they all have adopted. Some of them sit around and they make dua. They said, the Prophet is still here. They have a chair there, and everybody's in their chairs in a circle. Well, who y'all talking to? The Prophet. He's in that chair. That's extreme Sufi, and that's shirk. Well, I have a masjid like this. The brothers told me to carry North Carolina. They went because they were invited in Ramadan to do a iftar, and it was like African American Day. I don't know that they copied this we'll have 1 month out the whole year, African American History Month. So they give us one night in Ramadan and their masajid, or the diversified masajid, where we frequent this iftar is African American night. So all the African Americans bring fried chicken, fish, yams, macaroni, and people happy. Gotta be kidding me. So the brothers felt we're going with the Africans. So they went to the masjid and said in Kerry. And they went and they said these witness chairs in a circle. I said, what's that? I said, oh, it's a dhikr circle. So why I got a chair in the middle? I said, that's the Prophet's where he sits. We make dhikr to him, and we ask him, this is extreme Sufi. You couldn't pray behind that imam. The question was asked yesterday with Osama. You can pray behind that. Ma'ruf is known. That is extreme Sufi shirk. Don't even pray in that masjid. You can't. Behind that imam. And if it ain't the imam, somebody else guarantee you he's praying, if he's from the Jamaat, with the same belief. But Imam Hamza Yusuf, Adallah Yana, or Imam Zidshak, Adallah Yana, Allah God, them and us all, they're Sufi, but they're not extreme. They believe in spirituality and sitting in dhikr circle, and you make dhikr until you feel, lightheaded, and that might be to say it 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times, with your eyes closed. I remember when I first became a Muslim, the brother in Irvington, New Jersey, I think he died, named Sharif Abdul Hamid. He used to talk about this stuff, and I didn't know then. Now I know. He said, man, I was in the basement when you came, because his daughter wanted to come and sit down. He's in the basement. He said, I was down there making dhikr. He had his beads. He said he had his incense, and his black light, on, old poster black light. We used to have in Jahiliyyah. You cut it on, and the poster looked different. You sit down and just making dhikr. He said, man, you be, floating on air. Who, 1,000 times. You know what I'm saying? So when the Shaikh said the trick of the devil with Sufiya, he means the minor things that they do, this bid'ah, and the major. The Shaikh is including grave worship because that's what they was dealing with. In America, when we deal with Sufiya, we're not dealing with grave worship. So one of the examples I gave before, you could pray behind a Sufi, like you could go pray behind Zayd and Hamza Yusuf. You could pray in their masjid. Now, to sit in their class and take knowledge, that's another issue. Some would say yes from the ulama, and some would say no, who are those who say, well, you'll be affected. But you can take knowledge from them if it's 40 hadith, but they might say something. You got to have knowledge. But we dealing with people now to say they're Salafi, they on the way of the Salaf, and they saying stuff in their durus too. So how do you know? The more you learn. You can't sit with him out here because he's got issues. His aqidah not straight. But you sit with the people that tell you so-and-so said, that's it. The Shaikh said, but you can't quote no ayah to him. The Shaikh said, but you can't quote no hadith to him. The Shaikh said, and you're supposed to take it, and that's the final word. What is that? You can't sit with them people. Because of the name tag, because of the title, you can't. No. The principle is, you can't take that from them. But if they're not doing that, he's teaching something, he's reading from the book, and it's clean, guess what? You can take that from him. So this, the Shaykh, he mentioned the trick of the devil upon the Sufiya. He's talking general. He's mentioning both the big and the small of the God. And that's because that was his environment during that time, what they were dealing with. Number 11. As it relates to Mutadayyin and the people, Mutadayyin means religious people. I heard Sheikh Muhammad Munir mentioned this before. He was talking about marriage. He said, if the lady is righteous but she's not pious, don't marry her. If the lady is righteous but she's not pious, don't marry her. And if she's pious but not righteous, don't marry her. So he said if she's righteous but she lacks piety, don't marry her. And if she's pious but she's not righteous, then don't marry her. So here, Mutadayyin, this means a person is righteous, they're religious. They might pray and fast and read Quran, but they don't have no taqwa. They get high, they drink, they'll cuss you out in the middle of the street, you know what I'm saying? They might go to celebrate some major Kafir holidays like Christmas and New Year's. I mean, this is not a person who is showing taqwa. He's not fearing the limits of Allah. But they're salih, meaning they are doing righteous deeds. They give charity, they pray, they fast. And likewise, a person could stay away from sin. He doesn't backbite, he doesn't drink, he doesn't gamble. He won't steal nothing. If it's $100 on the floor, he'll walk right past it. But guess what? He don't pray. He don't make the 5 salat. He don't make Jumu'ah. Or he makes Jumu'ah, that's it. So he's pious in the sense of character and not violating and not going to do what's haram, but the ritual part that we would say if he saw he's doing righteous deeds, then it's not. So the Shaykh is talking about the Mutadayyin. This is a person who's religious. He's religious, how he played a trick on the religious people. And Mutadayyin, one of the ways they plays tricks on those people is that they go at excess, they go on extreme. They go to, like we said, measures, say I'm trying to please Allah, but they don't have a text. Mutadayyin also would mean like a person Mutadayyin, that person will pray. It's the example that the Shaykh gives. That person will pray in the night. But Shaitan, he comes to you one way that he will come to a religious person who does ibadah and has. If he can get you to do something of khayr, pay close attention. If he can get you to do something of good, in order that you leave a bigger good, then this is one of his tricks. He gets you to do something bad. No, he's getting you to do something good. But he's getting you to do something good at the expense that the bigger good, you're going to leave it. This is one of the tricks on the Muqaddiyin, religious people. One of the examples they give, they said like praying Fajr. Which one is wajib? Praying Fajr or praying in the night?
Praying Fajr.
Somebody say praying in the night?
Praying Fajr.
Fajr. Okay. What's the virtue of praying in the night? Is it recommended? Is it highly recommended? Is it something that you should seek to do? Does that person who prays in the night have a lofty status for the law? Is it one of the ways to the hellfire or to the Jannah? What's up with praying in the night?
Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down the last part of it. And so you want to be close to Allah Ta'ala.
And that's when the
You know,
dua
when you get up and you make a dua and those things.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
It's recommended.
Huh?
It's recommended.
Recommended.
Yeah.
Tell you, highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
Close to wajib. They call it sunnah mu'akkada. Mu'akkad is stress. Mu'akkad is stress. Meaning, you know, because the marriage is so strong, he will say it, he will tell you as if it's wajib. Like, don't miss the boat out here.
Pray while the people are sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, and one hadith sahih Muslim, he said, "Udkhulul Jannah." Into the paradise. Yani, if you salam, spread the salam. Wa silhu awham, keep family ties. Sallu bil-layl wa nas na'imun, pray in the night while the people yani, is sleeping. Yadkhulul Jannah. Bi-ayyi babin shit, or kama. You'll enter the paradise by any door that you wish. SubhanAllah.
Subhanallah.
Spread the salams. Like Naeem said, was in Jersey City. He said, man, sometimes, you know, the people act like it hurt to spread the salams. Yeah. I don't want to give you salams out here. Walk right past you. Pound him. And he gives salam. Salam alaikum. I don't want no daggone salam from you like that. No. Okay. The salam is dua wa tahiyyatun min Allah. It's a dua and it's a greet. It's not just a greet, it's a dua. You say salamu alaikum to the person. You're saying, may Allah yusallimaka. May Allah yusallimaka means that He make you safe. Min kulli afat, as Imam An-Nawawi said. From every afat means every evil you can think of. Every bad thing you can think of. Give me something that's bad. Quickly. Car accident. Somebody else.
Losing a child.
Sickness.
Losing a child. Sickness. What type of sickness?
Cancer.
Cancer. What about mental illness?
Mental illness.
Yeah.
Don't have no food in the house.
Don't have no food. Fighting, bloodshed, division, argumentation, divorce, losing your friends, losing your money, losing your mind,
Safety.
safety.
That's what it is. Safety.
Can't find your keys.
Can't find your keys. For some people, your phone. Almost not. Probably for most. What about from the afat, bad things, ma'asi? Allah, Shaykh, what they mean, he mentioned that too, ma'asi. It's a bad thing. When someone says salam alaikum to you, we say, may Allah save you from sin. Salam alaikum. Somebody says to you, may Allah save you from the punishment of the grave. Salam alaikum. May Allah save you on the day of judgment. All inclusive. Our facts. Any type of misfortune, sickness, spiritually, physically, mentally. Salamu alaikum. Wa as-salam min asma'illahi wa sifatih. It's also from the names and attributes of Allah. Allahumma innaka anta salam. The Prophet said after he finished praying, oh Allah, you are the salam. Meaning, you're the one that saves you from any evil. Wa minka salam. It comes from you. Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. Oh, the one who is lofty and full of nobility and high above everything. One of the dhikr the Prophet used to make after he finished praying. Not raise his hand. No, he just used to say it. What's the point? The point is, when you talk about this issue of praying in the night, how the shaitan will get you to do one good thing in order to make you lose out on the greater good thing. Look how the reward is. Look at the encouragement for praying in the night. So, even though we need to stay up, get the salah in. You dirt tired. You really know I should lay down. And if I lay down now, I might not pray in the night, but at least I'll be on time for Fajr. Lay down. And the angel, this is how you know it's the shaitan. Angel not going to encourage you to do something good or you'll lose something bad. The angel won't do that. The angel is only going to encourage you to good because Allah said, La ya'asuna ma amarahum. They don't disobey Allah and His commandments. Allah commands you to call one another to good, not to bad. Not to bad, even in the name of or in the form of something that looks like it's good but it's bad. Allah didn't command you that. So the angel not going to play no trick on you. Tell you, listen, lay down and I'll wake you up for Fajr. That's the angel. The good conscience is the cartoon, the bad conscience. They said the good conscience, that's the angel. And the bad conscience, that's the jinn that everybody has whispering. He's not in you, he's just there suggesting to you to do bad. So if he tells you, no, you know what, I think, don't lay down now, just you pray 3, don't pray 11, just pray 5. It's still sunnah. You know the narrations, right? Yeah, pray 5. That 5 is going to push you over the edge that when you go to sleep, you wake up, it's going to be sunrise. So he pushed you to do one good with the plan and the deception to get you to lose another good, which is the bigger good, adventure. It's one of the tricks he makes on them with the Dayyin, the religious people. Same thing, reading. Hadith of Prophet, it's in the Riyadh Salihin. We have like 2 more points and we'll be done, inshallah. والصلاة نهي عن كلام بعد العشاء أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهي عن الكلام بعد العشاء. The Prophet forbade you to speak, to talk, to conversate after Isha. Now here's a principle that we mentioned yesterday in Newburgh. We were leaving from the masjid. You were gone, Shaikh. You left already. If the Prophet tells you don't do something, it's not automatically it's haram. He tells you don't drink while standing. He tells you don't put your footwear on while standing. He tells you don't eat and drink while you're reclining. Those 3 things, drinking, standing, putting your shoes on or footwear standing, and eating and drinking, reclining, he forbade you. He told you don't do it. But you can't say it's haram unless it's clear. And if the Prophet told you don't do something, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you found him doing that thing, then the action that he is doing proves that him telling you not to do it is only disliked, not haram. Because if it was haram for him, if it was haram for you, it would be haram for him. Unless there's something that's particular for him, like the issue that's clear, marrying and fasting. He's able to marry more, he's able to fast longer. Those are clear texts that he himself said, Allah gives me for where he gives you not. Allah fortifies me where he fortifies you not. Allah has given me what he has not given you. Yeah. But in the issue of standing and drinking, he said don't do it, and he emphasized it. But he was seen drinking. Ali mentioned, Anas mentioned on Hajj, standing. He himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said don't put on your footwear standing, but he was seen doing it. Which the scholar said, so as long as it's safe to drink standing, then you can do it. Some people, if they drink standing, they may choke, posture issues, it's better to sit. Some people, if he's trying to put his footwear on, but he's not sitting, he may trip and fall. Like many times when I put my shoes, they say, Shaikh, you need a chair. Before they can get an answer, I already got my shoes on. Bop, bop. I got them laced like that. So if something happened, I can put them on and I can move. You got time to be sitting down, untied, already I'm blind. No, when they go down, I move my feet, inshallah. But it may be, I'm tired. Or these shoes are made a little different. I can't just slide in. And as I try to slide in, you see me lose my breath. I say, no, Shaikh, sit down. Now it becomes what the Prophet said, that's dislike haram for you. Because there's a factor that changed it. It's harm involved. So drinking, standing, okay, so as long as it's not harmful for you. Putting on your footwear standing, okay, so as long as it's not harmful. So when it becomes harmful, now that statement becomes haram, not disliked. Eating and drinking, reclining. Prophet said, don't do it. But he was found seen eating, reclining. So as long as it's not harmful for you, you can do it. Soon it becomes harmful, you eat and you recline, you start coughing, you choke. At that point, don't eat recline, you gotta sit up. If you eat and recline, you don't choke, you finish it, it's okay. It's just dislike because it's better for you to do it the other way around in most circumstances. Why am I mentioning that? Because this issue is the same thing. The Prophet said, no talking after Isha. Doesn't mean after you pray Isha, the brother says, Salam alaikum. You can't give salams back, or the Prophet said, no talking after Isha. We just finished Isha. The brother said, Aki, I gotta ask you a question. You say, Aki, it's the sunnah not to talk after Isha. You jet out the door. No. It means don't hold no lengthy conversations that will prevent you after Isha from getting up praying Fajr. That's what that means. Similarly to the first example we gave, how the shaitan will tell you and convince you to do something good. This is his trick on you, in order that you leave a bigger good, a greater good. So you want to study. You like reading. You like Sarah. You're up reading at night, and sometimes you do it. You go to sleep, you get up for Fajr. But this night, you're into it. You're reading. 1:30. Fajr's at 5 o'clock. You're reading. 4:37. And then 4:50. The adhan is at 5 o'clock. Your face hit the book. Go to sleep in the book. But I might say, mashallah, that's what I heard that Al-Bani used to do. He's with the hawk. Yeah, but Al-Bani didn't oversleep Fajr because he fell asleep in the book. Now your Fajr is at 7:35 a.m. And this is a regular. He said, but seeking ilm is a virtue. I'm trying to be upon this hawk. Now, shaitan, he tricked you to get you to do something that's great. Seeking knowledge is great. Whether it's abroad, whether it's local, whether it's with somebody, whether it's by yourself, seeking knowledge is a great thing in general. But you want to do it at the expense that you can't get up for Fajr? The shaitan incited you to that. Perhaps tricked you so that you can take something great to keep you from doing a greater thing. And then inshallah, the last point, inshallah, is with the awam. He tricks the common folk. And how well do you know about this? Because you have a common folk. Common folk, awam here means who are laysa a'lan bi an yatakallam fi umur ad-din. He does not have the right to be talking about the affairs of the deen. He doesn't. It doesn't mean that he's not a scholar. It could mean he's not a scholar, but it also could mean that that person is not a scholar, but still he's talking about something that he shouldn't be talking about. Or he's talking about something that doesn't concern him. So like, for example, I'm not a scholar. If you talk about the general term ulama and awam, they put everybody other than a scholar under awam in general. So we'll know our place. But in other times, they take a student, a shaykh, a bahith, a researcher, out of the category of awam because he's not the regular common folk as it relates to common folk and scholar. He's above common folk, but he's not a scholar. So a person could have the ability to talk about something and not be a scholar. A person could talk about something and not be a scholar. But here, the trick with the awam, he's in an area that he doesn't belong. He doesn't have the ability. He shouldn't be talking about that, but he's talking about it. So like today, we have people, he has 8th grade education. You ask him, he didn't go to high school. He graduated 8th grade. That's it. He's talking about who's on it, who's off it, what's halal, what's haram. Do you know what you really have to go through to be able to talk about that? And when they're talking about, well, I got halal and haram for Islam in English by Yusuf al-Qaradawi. No. That's just a reference book, and that has many mistakes. That's why Al-Bani did a tahqiq of this book years ago. Because Sheikh Mukbil, he talked about Yusuf al-Qaradawi in light of this dalala, this innovation and astrayness that he's upon. While Yusuf al-Qaradawi is a big alim, let's not mistake it. Huwa alim kabir. Lakin dalla sabil, but he's astray in a lot of issues. In his writings, in his fatwa, like he was one of the people that passed the fatwa that Amin al-Wudud can lead the Muslims in Salat Jum'ah in 2008. The lady who wanted to do Jum'ah and lead the people in prayer. Her name is Amin al-Wudud, 2008. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, we heard his audio, we seen the writing, as I could see back then. He passed the fatwa, it's permissible. Now, how the Dal Sabi is a person who's astray. بل هو رجل دليل يدل. He's astray and these others astray. رجل دليل. Now, in the set, because Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, no, they said, because Rasulullah said, Solat yani, ulul yani, and let the ulul العلم يعني يموم الناس في الصلاة أو كما قال. Let the people who have the most Quran lead the Salah. The Prophet said that. So if everybody in this room has 10 surah, but there's a lady coming here with half the Quran, then that means cut damaha, put her up, and she's behind us because the Prophet said in the general term, let the one who has the most Quran lead the Salah. Nah, no Allah. Okay. How? But he did that. So the point is, he has this book, Halal Haram for Islam. He's supposed to teach you what's halal and haram in Islam. That book, masturbating is halal. Okay, we know it's a difference of opinion. Some scholars said it's halal because the ayah talks about people. Talks about azwajukum aw ma malakat aymanukum. Your wife and right hands possessed, which we don't have that today. Don't let nobody tell you we have right hand possessed. He's Majnoon. Wallahi, some brothers, they still on that crap, man. I remember being in St. Louis, standing in the masjid, 2010. I came from Egypt. The brothers said, yeah, man. And they didn't know I was there. They were just talking, busting it up. I said, yeah, man. They want me some slaves. And I'm thinking, like, I should hit this joke in his mouth. I listen to a slave. As much as we come out of slavery, that's the best you want a slave. Yeah, man, it's kind of long. With Mauritania, give me some slaves, you know, some and he was African American, and sadly, he was a person who studied in Medina and the Mahad in Virginia. Has some respected. I respect him highly. Now, I respected him then, but that still wanted to hook off on him. You know what I'm saying? Man, you gotta be kidding. And he was serious. Serious. So no right hand possessed. The brothers used to say in the 90s when I became Muslim, if you see the lady on the street and you selling oils, and she said, brother, you got some oils to sell? Assalamu alaikum. Yes, sister, I got some oils. What kind you want? Cool water. You want Naeem. You want frankincense and myrrh. What kind you want? Oh, I want that one right there. What's that? Egyptian rose? Yeah. No. That's what my Abu used to wear. That Egyptian musk. Yeah, I got that, sister. Then he takes her hand, you know, hold it with one hand, put the oil and smell that, sister. Oh, that's nice. He touched her. He said, if you touch a lady, that becomes right hand possessed. You touched her with your right hand, so you possess her. You can have sex with her. You guys think he kidding me? Wallahi. I remember these statements out there. That's part of what made me go study. I said, this is too much. I gotta know what time it is, because that just don't sound right.
Right hand possessed?
Yeah, you possess it because your right hand. Your right hand touched her, you possessed her, Allah, you can have sex with her.
That's creepy.
So the issue in the Quran, Allah says, إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَ أَيْمَانُكُمْ إِلَّا أَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَمَا مَلَكَ أَيْمَانُكُم. Allah mentioned two things: your wives and your right hand. Meaning, you fighting in the cause of Allah, not terrorism. Somebody comes to invade you, you defend your village, and they flee, and everything left behind is yours. Animals, women. Okay, so what do? You rape the women like the kuffar do? No. They live with you, you feed them, they're like a maid. And then you like her, she likes you. I mean, let's be real, there's a chemistry. She's pretty, you're handsome.
And then you marry her.
You have some relation with her, but she don't want to marry. That's not considered zina. Why? Because she became almost like chattel property by way of prisoners of war. But it's like consented sex that becomes halal because you won in the battle. If she says, you know what, I'm in love with you, I want to have kids by you, you marry me, he said, come on. Then he takes her and she becomes his wife. This was the Islam back then. But that's not now. Can't say, I touched her with my right hand, I possess her. And of course, you're talking about your wives. So wives and right hand possessed back then were people. But a person using his hand, they said, but that's not in the ayat. So those scholars who say masturbation is okay because the exception Allah said, except the wives and the right hand possess. But this is your own hand. So some said masturbation in that regard is halal. Okay. Others said no. It's included because you're still having some type of gratification. So it's a difference of opinion how they interpret the ayat. Yusuf al-Qurdawi, he said, it's permissible. He didn't give no explanation like I'm giving. He didn't tafsir, Aqidah, and fiqh. He just flat out said it's permissible. You can't do that. You have to explain. Whichever position you take has to be a logic. You just can't tell the person music is halal, for example. Masturbation is halal. If you go to America, you can take riba. So Shaikh Mukbil, he said, Yusuf al-Qaradawi. He's in the masjid giving thoughts, refute this thing. He called his name like he sits right there. They sent these tapes all over, and they made hell, and they made people was tearing up stores. They liked that thing. Shaikh refute. Called him my name. Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Rajulun Bilil. He's a man who's astray. Huwa laysa bi shay'in. He's nothing. Bal huwa nasuk. Rather, he's a monk. You refute him like that. Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Bal huwa kalbin hawi. He's not Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Kalbin hawi means a dog saying, hawu. So the Shaykh basically saying he's talking hot air. Don't listen to him. He's crazy. He said about his book, Halal and Haram fil Islam. His book, Halal and Haram. He said, Bal huwa kullu shay'in fihi halal. He said he made everything halal. He said, Bal huwa halal wal halal fil Islam. He said he needs to change the meaning and not halal and haram Islam, say halal and halal in Islam. Because he made everything halal. When he did that, people stopped reading that book all over the world. Right? Because people didn't know. Right? Yeah. No, and they said, well, it's just he's big island. Yeah. But we're not worried about he's a big island. We're worried about what the big island is feeding the people. And if you're an island and that reach you and you talk to him and he don't buck, then you tell him, Shaykh, listen, you got to us, we got to talk about it. You thought the Shaykh was playing. The Shaykh wasn't playing. Imam, meaning he's Imam in character. Shaykh can just talk about people. Imam in worship. Imam in giving charity. But he's also Imam leading the Sunnah, which is crushing bid'ah. So that's real bid'ah. It's not homemade bid'ah like they say, well, we don't like Imam Hassan, he's on bid'ah because he didn't come to our conference. That's not bid'ah. They offer that here because, their message is not Salafi message. It's not bid'ah. And what do you mean it's not a Salafi masjid? What's meant by that? What does a Salafi masjid look like? Everybody in the masjid is Salafi, I think. So, how do you know that? Did you sit down and ask each person, when he accepted Islam, how they accept Islam, whether he learned, what he believes? So how do you know? If you might say, if you ask him, no, I'm not Salafi, I'm Ikhwani. No, brother, I'm not Salafi, I'm Khalafi, I'm modern day progressive Muslim. No, brother, I'm not Salafi, I'm Shi'i. How do you know? We had a man back in the day with us, and then I'm going to wrap it up, in East Orange. He used to lead the Salah. Tajweed was impeccable. He was a teacher in the Islamic school. When fitna broke out, and Dawood went this way, Abu Muslim went this way, and the fitna first started at East Orange, 61 Lincoln Street. That man, he left, we found out he wasn't even Muslim. He was amongst us. As a Muslim, we thought, because he memorized Quran, he came to live with us, he was praying in the masjid, we found out the man wasn't even Muslim. From him himself.
From his own words.
Yeah. How do you pray, fast, learn Quran, learn Arabic, teach it, this, that, and you're not a Muslim? How? Yeah. From Maryland. When all the fitna broke out, where'd he go? And he may have been sent for them from the alphabet boys. Who knows?
Yeah,
I'm talking about impeccable. Woo! Wee! Swear he said somewhere as a little kid. So why am I mentioning that? I think it's not what somebody has. The idea is what they bring. I think it's what they bring. And this, the trick the Shaitani mentioned on the people who are the awam, dealing in issues. That's what Salam lastly said. They took up natural usul jahala. They take the ignorance, they lead us. That's what's happening today. Everybody's shaking now. Shake this, shake that, shake this, shake that. Well, almost done. Before, he's not a sheikh. Unless he's from over the water. Now, everybody from your crew is a sheikh to the point you don't even have to pick up the phone no more. We your shuyukh, we got this. Almost done. These are common folk. And some of them really common. They don't know. The brother don't know. In fact, he want to tell you about Shaikh Rabi, like the brother did in Jersey City. And I blacked out a couple of days ago. Shaikh Rabi. His name is not Rabi. First is Rabi'. Shaikh Rabi. Who the heck is Rabi? Then you talking stuff that you would at least have to know Arabic. You can't even talk about these issues. They're too technical. Then you want to argue. When you ask the question in the name of, you really want to make fit in the name of a question, and then you want somebody to accept what you're saying. And the brother told me yesterday, he said that brother, after he apologized, came back, said he was wrong, and hugged you, and apologized to everybody and left. He called me the next day saying, I just felt it was necessary to say what I had to say. Who the hell is you? That your opinion has to be heard.
Because after you apologize?
Yeah! I told me the other night, he was hot. He said, but you came back and said I was wrong and hugged and apologized. He said, the next time I have a program, I'm going to make sure everybody write their questions down. Nobody from the floor. And if that thing ain't right, we're not answering. And he said, that guy might be barred. Because he really just came from the SP crew. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you are wrong. I tell you, like Al-Albani used to say, somebody come to debate the Shaykh. You talking about Arabs, no language. The Shaykh would say, Iqra al-Fatiha. I heard it one time. He said, do you want to debate me? Okay. The brother was ready. The Shaykh said, on one condition. He said, and what's that? He said, Iqra al-Fatiha. Read al-Fatiha. Guy was stubborn. The Shaykh said, la, or shartum. The niqash, Iqra al-Fatiha. This is the condition for me to debate you. He wouldn't do it. Because he probably know I have mistakes. The Shaykh won't even alive. How we going to debate you got mistakes in the Fatiha, fool? How? No, really. You want to debate and you don't have what's wajib ala kulli awam, common folk. You're a bus driver. You want to debate. How can you a bus driver? You ain't studied nowhere. And even if you read this and that and you well polished, guess what? The Salaf, they used to say, a person who has no teacher cannot be the imam for anybody but himself. All these self-taught people, and he's shining, and they put him up there. Okay, he read good. He might read better than me. That's a gift Allah gave him. But he shouldn't be taken from with his knowledge because he don't have nobody that was his teacher. He's the only one that's the imam for himself because he has nobody that should be under him because he didn't take from nobody like the aqidah and manhaj of Islam requires you have to take from somebody. Just so when he studied with Abu Uwais, rahimahullah, said it's about Umar Quinn. Okay, tell you that best. But I came to so behind him and jealous of Ahl al-Ilm. But how can you compare that to people who said Ahl al-Ilm? Yeah, he said Abu Uwais, but he didn't miss no meals because he was sick with malaria and typhoid like I did. This is part of ilm, being patient upon adversity. Yeah, he said Abu Uwais, but he wasn't sick from sitting on the floor with hemorrhoids because it's a marble floor. Nobody told us you better bring a pillow or cushion. He wasn't being hunted down back then by the Shia who wanted to kill you and wasn't no 911 and let me call Ummi, a place for real men. You understand me? You're talking about he sat with somebody. Don't you know them same Salaf, if you preach the Salaf, they said the ilm is not what you memorize and how much you got, but the ilm is that you watch and take the character from the scholars. Have the whole ilm. Yeah. Character. Which we left off. And you want to say what somebody said. Nah. Self-taught. Point blank. Certified. USD self-taught. Standard. Ain't set with nobody. Allah most. And then say, okay, well, this person, he didn't study with nobody, but now he went to study with Shaikh Islam. Hey, yeah, that's good. But I can limit. Why? Because people, he tired of them saying, you ain't study nowhere, and they said you are Shaikh, so now you go study. Ain't a sidq. What the ikhlas? What's the truthfulness and sincerity? And we're not open nobody's chest, but like Umar said, when the Prophet was alive, we should judge by revelation. Now the Prophet died, نحن نحكم على الظاهر. We're going to judge you based on what we see. هذا الكلام أمير المؤمنين عمر بن الخطاب. That's what we're doing. You see. So this book, wallahi, is in English. Have some. I'm not trying to attack, but you know, when it's something you do, you know that's your area. The translation is not the best. May Allah bless them. You know, they attempt to do a great job. Sometimes people are underqualified, but they take on the task because people who are qualified won't do the work. But this book is translated to English. You may get a lot of benefit from it. And there are some narrations in it that, again, people take out of place. We mentioned some of them, such as it will be more befitting to be in bars with Christians and Jews drinking than to be with the people of Bid'ah. You have statements like this in this book. But what's the context? Again, it's saying to you, we'll go out and drink and hang with a Jew and Christian rather than being with so-and-so who we label on his back, he's a Muqtadi. No. They said that because during that time, their people weren't sinners. They didn't have people that was going to drink. If you paid them, they know they weren't going to be with Jew and Christians. So they were making a comparison to something that people would not do. It would be better for you to sit in bars and drink alcohol with Jews and Christians than to be with the people of Bid'ah, because again, those people of Bid'ah back then were the governments and their puppets, and they had big major Bid'ah that makes you a non-Muslim like the Quran is created. You can't compromise with that. You have to fight that. Because once they get everybody to believe and say Quran is created, guess what? Quran is finished.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Bible is finished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Once you get people to believe Allah Musta'an, Allah is everywhere. He's in me. He's in the house. He's in the Bayut Zina, the Brafa house. He's in once the Tawheed is over. You gotta fight that. Once you get people to say that Abu Bakr, Kafir, Umar, Kafir, Uthman, Kafir, Khalas, no more deen, Sahaba, detached from the mainstream Islam. So you have to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were fighting. But they knew that their people were upright. Is it befitting for me to tell a person that I know praise Isha and he goes and gets crack and he smokes all night? Is it befitting for me that I know the person, he's a drug dealer and he uses from his own product while he quotes Uthaymeen and Mabaz? Is it befitting for me, someone I knows he's an alcoholic, she's addicted to drugs, to tell him it would be better for you to be in bars, drinking, getting high with Jews and Christians than to be with the people of Bid'ah? The context is not there. They doing that anyway. You understand me? So this is why they would make statements like that. If you hear a man, he's saying about Hamad ibn Salama, وَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ عَلَى سُنَّةٍ. You hear a man talking about Hamad ibn Salama. But that's what the people Bid'ah would do. They would talk against the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah. So if I say something about somebody today, now, I'm from the people Bid'ah. Let me make this point in the end. Like in the match, we used to study 60 durus a day. 60, without exaggerating. 60 a day. 60 a day. One of them was Sifatu Salat al-Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which we had the ability, alhamdulillah, to study and finish in this masjid. May Allah accept from us. Ameen. And so brothers, they would say, when we would make a judgment on hadith, because again, the match was a place that was grooming scholars. If you didn't make it to scholarship, you got some fruit from the tree of scholarship. You learned how to go into the chain of hadith, and that was a place, of drinking and eating knowledge 7 days a week, even on 8. Male, female, children, young, old, Arab, non-Arab, you name it. That was the life. So if Shaykh al-Albani, for example, says it's okay for you to say in the salat, when we make the taslim, salamu alaikum, just once to the right, and your salat is okay, rather than saying salamu alaikum rahmatullah to the right, salamu alaikum rahmatullah to the left. If he says that, and a bona fide scholar of Islam, who's a muhaddith, or his students, who have the ability to talk by their shuyukh, they go and check that chain, and we see Al-Albani made a mistake, we don't take that chain. We don't take that ruling that you can say, Salamu alaikum. No, you have to do to the right and the left. Or at least, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the right. Not just Salamu alaikum. They said he's attacking Al-Albani. They went crazy. Because back then it was Al-Albani, we were Al-Albani-yun. If Al-Albani said it, that's it, make such stuff. This was one of the fitnas in the 90s. Before we got to Sheikh so-and-so said it, which we're dealing with now, the fitna of Sheikh Rabi and others that the brothers have replaced this, mentality with. There used to be Al-Albani. They even said that about Sheikh Mukbil. They slandered and said he attacks Al-Albani, and he says Al-Albani is lukewarm and great in hadith. So the Shaykh, he had to, clarify. I said, no, Al-Albani is the most knowledgeable of the Sunnah in our time. Take from his books, take from his fatwa. He's Imam of the Sunnah in our time. Okay, look, he's saying that about Shaykh Al-Albani. But do you think he meant that Al-Albani, no one could have knowledge like him? He's the only Imam of the Sunnah? No. Like we call Imam Ahmad, they gave him the nickname Imam Ahlul Sunnah. But do you think he's the only one that has that name? in his time. He just became known the most by that because he was the one who stood up and Allah gave him victory. But other people stood up too, but they got tortured. Other people stood up too, they got killed. Other people stood up too against is the Quran created. And they flip-flopped to save their life. So Shaykh Muqbil, he said no. He said, I'm just not pleased with the judgment that Shaykh al-Albani made on some hadith. He's an alim. He don't have to take that. He's an alim himself. He has the same tools. But they said Shaykh al-Muqbil, he's attacking al-Albani. Same thing. Because we're talking about the issue of awam, common folk, not knowing their place. Or people having glue for their righteous, which the Prophet mentioned. This is how we got to worshiping the prophets and messengers, because people went too far with the righteous. Too far. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from the many tricks, plots, deceptions of the devil, Iblis, la'natullah alayhi. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and make us a people that are sincere in seeking knowledge. And this is one of the problems, lack of sincerity. So we have all of this ism and schism. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all, because all of us played a portion or may play a portion in this fitna, one way or another. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our hearts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our actions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mend our Islam in our hearts, to mend our brotherhood in our communities, to mend our sisterhood in our communities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to condition us to accept the truth when it comes, wherever it may come, wherever it may come from. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to punish us and to make us from amongst those without Islam and the Sunnah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبد الله ورسوله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا هو أستغفره وأتوب إليه وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله كل خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I don't think there's no questions. I'm pretty sure everybody's straight. I can see the smiles on your face.
I got one question.
Now you'll be having a book report, Shaykh.
Well, you know,
So this-
Abu Sama, you know, he got a question.
Yeah, you keep knowledge. Not just a question. You gotta bring the knowledge, you know,
so
of the.
when you mentioned the music, right?
There you are.
The music, you know, the music is haram.
Yes, sir.
So the question is like, it's really one question, but
Okay.
it's two subjects in the one question. So a couple of years ago, you remember the imam that was the imam at the Kaaba for a while, Shaykh Adel Al-Kalbani?
Yes, yes, yes.
So he was having an interview one time, and they asked him two things. So one thing about the
Come on, Shaykh, keep it in context for short.
Alright, so they asked him about music, right? And I don't know what his level of education is. I know he's Hafiz of Quran.
Just mention the question, please, Habib. It's okay.
They said something about music, and he said there's nowhere in the Quran that says music is haram.
No,
But
what's
it's
the
the
second?
hadith that says it, obviously, but I'm just saying, why did he just... I was kind of confused why he just left it at the Quran without
Tell you.
getting into, you know, hadith or
Tell you.
anything like
Hey,
that.
I like that
So
shit.
that was the first part of it. And the second part was just they asked him about the Shia, and he was saying basically, as far as the layman, he's not gonna say that they're disbelievers, but for a Shia scholar to say Abu Bakr's a kuffar or Umar's a kuffar, then the scholar is a kuffar, more or less.
Tell you.
So, what's the positions on that exactly? I mean, is that correct? On the music thing, elaborate on that.
Now, and you said the common folk not going to say that, but the Shia scholars they make the claims about Abu Bakr, Uthman, like
He
this.
said the common folks say it because they're not scholars. They're not like they don't have the knowledge to really know better. They probably following their scholars, so they wouldn't be seen as a kafir. He's saying,
Okay,
but
quick,
he's
I got you. I'm with you. Take it.
That part I need to make sure I understood. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In a nutshell, the first part about the Sheikh's statement. Wallahi, I went and listened to his biography some years ago. He's very well read, but he's not a scholar of hadith like the Sheikh Muhammad Amin al-Habrawi, was from Ethiopia, who died in Mecca, was 100 plus. He's not like Muhammad ibn Adam Ethiopi, who's a student, who he just died not long ago in Mecca, who was a scholar of hadith. It's not like the Shaikh Wasi al-Abbas, was also from the scholars of hadith there. And all of these people, by the way, they're African. And they're scholars of hadith. It's not like my Shaykh who just died, Rahman Ajalan, who was from the Mamlaka there in Mecca. It's not from those people, but he's Shaykh, he's scholar. So he's right. There's no ayat in the Quran that says Avani, as we common day, Musiqa. This is the terms they use for music. Musiqa, they took music and made it an act, Musiqa. And the Avani or Ma'azif, these terms are not in the Quran. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said about the Prophet, Inna anzalna ilayka dhikr. When we have sent to you the dhikr, means Quran, so that you can explain to them what this Quran is. So it's not everything is black and white in the Quran. Allah did that for a reason. Just like not everything is foundational, some things are branches, and not everything is clear cut. Allah left it where it needs interpretation, and then interpretation came from His messenger. So, may Allah bless the Shaykh. Maybe he only said when he knew this is Islam. But the reality is music is haram. And you have many ayat in the Quran that deal with this directly and indirectly without the words that normally people use for musiqa or aghani or ma'azif. And it could be used soaked voice. As Allah mentioned this in the Quran, the shaitan would use aswatakum, your voices against you. And also it can be used as hadith. Hadith means statement, but also means when you put a bunch of lyrics together and you sing it. As Allah said, lahwal hadith, vain speech. And Allah said, yudilla an sabilillah, to take you astray. Allah said, bighayri ilm, without Allah allowing you to do so. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, if that ayat, vain speech, doesn't mean, and he used the word ma'asif that the Prophet used in Bukhari and others, he said that I don't know what it can mean. Meaning, absolutely, it means music, song and dance. Then Prophet he mentioned the hadith, and he doesn't mention anything in the hadith except somewhere in the Quran is mentioned directly or indirectly. So the Shaykh maybe didn't have that knowledge. Barakallahu fihi, Allah bless him. And the Prophet said that if an alim is asked and he makes a mistake, he's sincere, he gets one reward for his mistake. If he gets it right, he gets 2 rewards. That's an alim. So he's not to be blamed or to be belittled. As for the issue, barakallahu fikum, the common folk, and we don't make the common folk anything because they're common. And they're following the scholars, and even the scholars that make that mistake, they should be explained or debated before the people who control rulings and courts and civilization come down on them and say they're kuffar. It's not just they're kuffar, spread it, because you're going to make bloodshed, you're going to make fighting, you're going to make mayhem, it's to clarify something. But if clarifying the truth is going to make matters worse, then you don't clarify. That might sound like a cheap way out, but this is the religion. The main thing is law and order, peace and ability to be safe. So if you want to say something that even is right, but it's going to rock the boat, and now the boat is going to be side capped when it was float before, although it just had 2 people in it, then you can't side cap it. You gotta let the boat float with 2 people. You gotta leave it alone.
So yeah, but the Shia scholars, wallahi, they have made Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Kufar, and I used to listen to some of their programs on the YouTube in Arabic. Some ulama, Sunnah would read from their scholars' books. It's clear that they're Kufar. Their scholars, it's clear. Like everything that Islam stands for with regards to Quran and Sunnah, they flipped it. It's not a thing that we do except they do it different, purposely. And if you say the Quran that Muhammad had was not the Quran, khalas, we don't need to go no further. You're a kafir. Scholar or layman, you're a kafir. You saying that same, you're not insane, you're aware you're a kafir. But look at the fit it will make in the Mamlaka if the Shaikh would have said that. Because you have Shia, active Shia there at the Prophet's masjid propagating this stuff, to instigate this stuff all the time. And they're citizens. So they don't want people saying the Saudi government is slaughtering their own citizens, and this is going to be horrible. That's why they didn't kill Jamal Khashoggi in the Mamlaka. It would have been horrible. Outside, they can say, we didn't do it, this, that. But inside, how are you going to escape that? You're the government. So that's what that is. But yeah, this is the correct ruling, that you don't take the common folk, even with the Warfdeen community. The Warfdeen community, they believe that we take the Quran and we don't need the Sunnah. They're called Quraniyun, the scholars. This is an old group. And they are part of Ahmadiyya. Mm-hmm. And this is where Imam Warfdeen learned his education from those people. His shuyukh, he would go to Pakistan. He was doctrinated. This government did that for a reason, so that our people will be detached from Quran and Sunnah. They made him the redeemer. Basically, he was the mujaddid of the Islam fi asrina fi America. That's what they made him. That's why they had him in the final call. Mm-hmm. The flag on one side, the Islamic flag, and the American flag, and then they had, in the name of Allah, and the merciful, the benefactor, but you shouldn't say the benefactor, no. But that's what they did. They said, and Kufu Allahu Ahad, and then the Redeemer, for American Muslims, salvation, all of this, the government did all of this. So when they say you don't need the Sunnah, just the Quran, this is clearly kufr again. But the fitna you will make with good people, I think. Many of them came out of that. You're sitting with one of the greatest men that we know that to break his back. They came out of that. Outside. This thing was back then, they would have took the brush kafir on all those good people. Yeah, if you look what it would have did. I think Imam Musa and Mount Vernon and all of these people, they came from that. So no, you can't do that. It takes time, I think. It takes time, So that's the right ruling. You don't do that with common folk, and with the leaders. You should be behind closed doors. You can hash it out, and don't let that go, amongst the people. Allah knows best. Anybody else?
I wanted to add to that. You kind of gave me because
you want to answer that?
No, I wanted to add to it because you
mentioned. How you gonna add to what?
You said some stuff that kind of like reminded me of with the music, right? So I remember going to the Warfdeen community in Atlanta, and they had this thing called Ask a Imam when they had 3 imams sit like on a panel. Yeah. So then they was asked about the music too.
Remember you online, so be tactful and short.
Yeah, mashallah.
A lot of better people.
And so when they asked him one of the imams about the music, he was saying it's not the music per se, it is the musical instrument. And then he even tried to get more specific to like a violin or something because of like a string was mentioned in the hadith or something.
So what you gonna do with all of that now? You got a tafsir, you got a tahqiq.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay, so what I'm gonna say for you as your big brother, that's why again the awam, we don't deal with that. We ask the people knowledge, they give us, and if you don't understand what they give, you trusted them enough from the ayah that Allah commanded you to ask them, you take it. And as you grow, then you can go back and look and say, oh, now I see what, this, that. But in retrospect, you want to be saved from the fire. You ask it with sincerity because you want to grow your iman. So you take the baseline And we call the ayat. What Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said is enough. Yeah. What Allah said, he said, Lahu al-hadith. What's lahu? Lahu is vanity. Vanity. There's no guidance in something that's lahu. In Surah Al-Mu'mineen, Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. The believers will be victorious on the day of judgment who used to do these following things in the dunya. They had khashi'un. They were fearful in their salah.
So you said.
I'm quoting the ayah. It's time to take in.
Okay.
The first thing, they establish salah and they have khashya. Alladina, yani, lahwi mu'ridun. And those, when they hear vanity, they turn away. That's clearly Allah's speech. وَالَّذِينَ فِي زَكَاتِهِمْ فَاعِلُونَ. And those who have money, they give it instead. These the people Allah mentioned, أُولَٰئِكَ يَعْنِي يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسَ هُمْ فِيهَا. Lahwul is in that for the believer. The other ayat, Allah said, lahwul hadith. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ. Some people, they purchase vain speech. That's what they used to do back then, like you hire some singers and dancers. So Allah said, yashtari, you purchase. Let me get a bag of apple. You give it something, you get something back. Lahu al-hadith. You should yashtari. Hire people to sing and the ladies to dance. Allah said, yashtari lahu al-hadith. Why? The lamb here tells you why. لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Li, lamb came. The reason for why they get these people to do vain speech. لِيُضِلُّونَ, to misguide the people from what? عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Sabili here means Islam. ادعوا إلى السبيل ربك بالحكمة وموعظة حسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. Allah said, and call to the way of, but he said, sabil. The Salaf used to say, alaykum bis sabil wa sunnah. I command you to follow sabil and the sunnah. Sabil is another way of saying Islam, Quran. Allah said, Allah is telling you why they got these people saying this vanity with dancing and singing. لِيُضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And then Allah said, بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ, without knowledge. You have 4 points, 5 points. Laqul hadith shows it's haram. The lamb, لِيُضِلُّونَ, to lead you astray. Number 4, An sabilillah, from Allah's path. No, that's number 3. Number 4, بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Then Allah said, وَيَتَّخِذَهَا هُزُوًا, and he take it as a game. 5 things in the ayah. That's why Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, if it ain't ma'azif, if it's not singing and dancing and musical instruments, he said, I don't know what it is. Meaning, what else could it be? Meaning, I know what it is because the Prophet told me this is what it is. It's music, this ayah. And this was ijma' of the Sahaba. So we got all this difference of opinion in fried chicken now. They didn't debate on it. They knew what it was. And they had people singing and dancing and partying. And there's always somebody boogieing.
Yeah, that's what I.
There's always somebody boogieing. So, wallahi, it's cut and dry. The Prophet said in the Hadith al-Bukhari that people come from his ummah. He talking about Muslims. They will do 4 things. They will seek to make boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay, tell me they didn't do this, the Muslims. They will seek to make silk wearing for men. Okay, tell me they didn't do that. They will seek to make intoxicants halal. And they will seek to make song and dance halal. Hadith is But Yusuf al-Qaradawi, Imam al-Ghazali, all of these people, they said, no, music is halal. That's why Shaykh Muqbil called him Rajulun Dalil. He's a stray. He's following his desires. So it's cut and dry. Whoever's saying this, that, and the third, afallah anhum. May Allah forgive them. The issue with us is samitna wa ata'na. If somebody's struggling with that, they got to say, oh Allah help me, but they can't debate it. You can't Islamify it. Well, well, there is some good lip. No. And just jazz by itself is haram. But our people struggle with that. That's what uplifted us after slavery, after Reconstruction. I mean, so Allah, somebody might die with B.B. King, Aretha Franklin, all that stuff in their head. May Allah forgive them. But that don't remove that it's haram. When you listen to that, wallahi, you don't have no desire, and if you do, it's very little to listen to the book of Allah. I know, I used to be a musician. When I came here to East Coast, I had the gummy and the gold teeth. I was into the Apollo, I think. With Bismarck and all them. Used to be a rapper, I think. I gave all of that up. At 23, like my son, accept Islam and never look back. You can't tell me about no music. I know. See, your soul. Sometimes it's stuck about you. Act like me. Right there and start saying that thing. Make up my own joint. That's us. But is it halal? Haram. You watch a commercial. You watch a movie. It's in every clip. What are you going to do? Minimize what you listen to. What are you going to do? Cut the volume down. But I won't be able to hear what they're saying. Okay, there's choices you make. But meanwhile, your heart is affected. Heart is affected. That's why with the Qayyim al-Jawziyya, he said, Al-Ma'azib, Quran is Shaitan. He said, music is the Quran of the devil. وَلَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ فِي الْقَلْبِ الْوَاحِدِ. And they can't be in one heart at the same time. إِمَّا إِيمَانٍ أَوْ إِمَّا نِفَاقٍ. If you have iman in your heart, or you have hypocrisy, they're not going to share the same apartment. They're not going to share the same apartment. So when you listen to Quran, then the fact left temporarily. The iman is raising a little bit. Then when you listen to the music, the Quran jumped out. The iman is plunging a little bit. That's just how it's going. May Allah make it easy for us all. May Allah condition us to accept the haqq. And may Allah save us from the fitna of those people who twist the book and the sunnah, even though they be ulama. Allahumma musta'an. Two more questions and then that's it. Barakallahu feekum. Fadal.
That's it, Shaykh.
Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.